Hello guys, welcome to Saiyan What Ifs. So in this video, we will see, what if Goku controlled all timelines? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Ascension and Responsibility. The universe was dying. Not with the thunderous clamor of battle that had defined so much of Son Goku's existence, but with the soft, inexorable whisper of entropy, a timeline unraveling at its quantum seams. Suspended in the void between what was and what might have been, Goku observed the collapsing reality with eyes that had long since evolved beyond mere Saiyan perception. Ribbons of chronological energy, golden, azure, crimson, twisted through his splayed fingers as he meticulously reconstructed the fabric of existence one subatomic particle at a time. "Hold together," he murmured. More from old habit than necessity. His voice, unchanged despite the eons he'd witnessed, carried no sound in this non-space between realities. Just a little longer. Timeline Delta 379 shuddered beneath his touch. Unlike the countless others he'd stabilized since his ascension, this one resisted correction with almost sentient determination. Sweat beaded along his brow, another vestige of his mortal origins that persisted despite his transcendence. The familiar orange gi he still wore rippled with energy as he channeled more of his consciousness into the repair. This timeline had significance. They all did, each one precious in its uniqueness, but Delta 379 contained a variant where Gohan had become the Earth's primary defender, where his son had fulfilled the potential Goku had always glimpsed. A world where his firstborn hadn't abandoned his training for scholarship, but had instead achieved a harmony between intellect and power that Goku himself had never managed. "Dad never would have believed I'd become the scholarly type," Goku whispered with a ghost of his old grin, memories of his adoptive grandfather Gohan flickering through his mind. "SS that makes two of us," who surprised him. With a final surge of concentration, Goku completed the temporal reconstruction. The timeline stabilized, its quantum signature pulsing with renewed vitality as it rejoined the vast, intricate tapestry of the multiverse. Goku withdrew his influence with the delicate precision of a surgeon, careful not to leave impressions that might alter its natural flow. Direct interference was forbidden, even for him. Especially for him. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who had once changed history with his fists now served as its most vigilant guardian against change. Exhaustion settled over him. Not physical fatigue, but the bone-deep weariness that came from extending his consciousness across dimensional barriers. With a thought, he transported himself back to the Chronos Nexus. The extra-dimensional headquarters he'd established at the convergence of all timelines. The Nexus materialized around him, a vast crystalline chamber that somehow existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Suspended platforms of luminous material floated at various elevations, connected by bridges of pure energy. At the chamber's center hovered the chronograph, a three-dimensional projection of the multiverse, countless threads of light representing individual timelines, clustering into nexus points of possibility before branching outward again in an infinite, ever-expanding web. Goku approached the chronograph, noting the newly stabilized Delta 379 pulsing with healthy golden light. But his satisfaction faded as he observed new disturbances forming, crimson disruptions in the theta sector. Quantum fluctuations in the gamma branches. "The work never ended. You're pushing yourself too hard again." The voice came from behind him, feminine but crisp with authority. Goku didn't need to turn to identify its owner, but he did anyway, a remnant of the courtesy that Chi-Chi had drilled into him over decades of marriage in another lifetime. Sora Kai stood on one of the upper platforms. Arms crossed over her celestial strategist's robes. The garments, shimmering white with intricate blue patterns that subtly shifted to represent cosmic equations, contrasted sharply with her stern expression. Her silver-blue hair was pulled back in a severe style that emphasized her angular features and penetrating violet eyes. Those eyes, Goku had learned, could calculate probability streams across multiversal constants with the same ease that he once tracked fast-moving opponents. "Hello, Sora," Goku greeted her with genuine warmth despite their frequent disagreements. "I didn't feel you arrive." Evidently, her tone remained coolly professional as she descended a staircase of light that formed beneath her feet. The celestial conclave has been in session for 30 temporal units. Your absence has been noted. Goku rubbed the back of his head, another habit from his mortal days. Sorry about that. Delta 379 was collapsing. It couldn't wait, and yet the universe persists. Sora stopped several paces away, maintaining her characteristic distance. The conclave grows increasingly concerned about your methods, Guardian. Intervention in Delta 379 represents the 7th timeline stabilization this cycle. The cosmic balance was in danger of catastrophic cascade failure if that timeline collapsed, Goku finished, his voice gentle but firm. I analyzed the probability streams before acting. Sora, it was necessary, so you consistently claim. She approached the chronograph, her slender fingers manipulating the display to highlight a series of interconnected timelines. The conclave believes your emotional attachment to certain realities, particularly those containing variants of your family, colors your judgment. They've tasked me with Riemandan. Gu that objectivity is paramount in your position. Goku's eyes narrowed slightly, the only outward sign of his frustration. Is that why you're here? Another lecture on detachment from the gods who watch but never act. Sora's posture stiffened. The celestial conclave has maintained multiverse stability for eternity. Yes, I know, Goku sighed, turning back to the chronograph. They've mentioned it repeatedly, but stability isn't always what's needed, Sora. Sometimes change, even drastic change, is the only path forward. Says the mortal who ascended beyond his station, she muttered, though without real malice. Former mortal, Goku corrected with a ghost of his old light-hearted smile. And I didn't exactly volunteer for the job. The memory crashed over him then, unbidden, unwelcome, yet unavoidable. 7 years earlier, relative time. The sky above Earth shattered like glass, cosmic fractures spreading across the blue expanse as reality itself began to disintegrate. Goku Street. Ood alongside the assembled defenders, Z fighters past and present, allies from across the universe, even former enemies united against extinction. Before them loomed an entity beyond comprehension, a being of such cosmic power that even the gods of destruction had fallen. Kronos, the devourer of ages. Not a creature of flesh and blood, but an abstract force given malevolent purpose, the embodiment of entropy accelerated to catastrophic proportions. It had consumed universe after universe, timeline after timeline, growing stronger with each reality it unraveled. We can't beat it conventionally. Whis had explained in those final desperate hours. Kronos exists beyond physical form. It is the end of all things personified. Yet they fought anyway, because that was what heroes did, what Goku had always done. He led the charge in his perfected Ultra Instinct form, silver-white aura blazing against the darkening sky as reality crumbled around them. Vegeta at his side, their children behind them. They unleashed everything, every technique, every transformation, every desperate gambit. For nothing. One by one, they fell. Not dead. Something worse. Erased. Unmade. Their very existence actively eliminated as Kronos consumed not just their bodies but the very concept of them having ever been. Goku watched Vegeta vanish mid-Gallic gun, his proud friend's final snarl of defiance ECHOI. Ing briefly before even the sound of his voice was consumed. Gohan and Piccolo disappeared together, mentor and student united in their final stand. Krillin, Tien, Yamcha, friends who had stood beside him since childhood, were simply gone. As if they had never been. Goku. Chi-Chi's voice called out from behind him, and he turned to see her running toward him, defying evacuation orders to be at his side one last time. Their eyes met across the disintegrating battlefield. And she vanished, erased from existence between one heartbeat and the next. Something broke inside Goku then. Not his spirit, chi, that had been tested countless times before. Not his resolve, that had been forged in the fires of battles beyond imagination. What broke was the dam he had unconsciously built around his true potent. IAL, the limitations he had placed on himself to remain, at his core, the simple martial artist from Earth. With a roar that transcended language, transcended species, transcended reality itself, Goku stopped holding back. The silver-white flame of Ultra Instinct erupted outward, consuming his body, rebuilding it at a fundamental level. He reached deep into the well of power he had always possessed but never fully tapped. And channeled everything. Not just ki, but the very essence of his being, his unbreakable will, his unconquerable spirit. The universe trembled. Chronos paused in its consumption. In that moment of hesitation, unexpected allies appeared. Zeno, the Grand Priest, and the assembled gods of all surviving universes. They had prepared a desperate gambit, a final option, to channel their collective power into a single vessel capable of opposing Chronos. They had selected a champion, the Supreme Kai of Universe 7. But Goku's unexpected transformation had changed everything. His power now exceeded their chosen vessel. The gods exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between immortal beings who had witnessed the birth and death of galaxies. Son Goku, the Grand Priest intoned, his voice somehow audible above the cacophony of dissolving reality. Will you accept the burden? There was no time for explanation, no moment for consideration. Goku looked around at the tattered remains of existence, at the void where his loved ones had stood mere moments before, and nodded once. What followed defied description. The assembled divine beings surrounded Goku, forming a perfect circle as they channeled their collective essence into his transforming body. Zeno's hands, small yet containing the power to erase universes with a thought, pressed against Goku's chest, transfi. RRING something ineffable yet unmistakable, authority over reality itself. The pain was beyond comprehension, beyond endurance. Every atom of Goku's being was unmade and reconstructed countless times. His consciousness expanded to encompass dimensions his mortal mind had never conceived. He witnessed the birth of the first universe and the death of the last, simultaneously experiencing every moment of every possible timeline that had ever existed or could exist. When it ended, Goku was more. Not just physically stronger, not just more powerful in the conventional sense. He had become Someth, Ing Nu, a guardian existence that transcended the boundaries between mortal and divine. The battle that followed would be recorded differently in each surviving timeline, those that retained any memory of it at all. In some, it was described as two titans clashing in the void between realities. In others, as a philosophical debate given form and substance. In the most accurate, perhaps, it was Rico. RDED as the reshaping of fundamental cosmic law, the establishment of new principles governing the nature of existence itself. What all accounts agreed upon was the outcome. Chronos was not destroyed, a force could never truly be eliminated, but bound, contained, and repurposed. Entropy remained, but returned to its natural, gradual progression rather than the accelerated consumption it had become. And Goku, once a simple martial artist from Earth, assumed the mantle of guardian of all timelines, tasked with preserving the delicate balance of the multiverse against threats that would unmake reality itself. Guardian Goku, quote. Sora's voice pulled him back to the present. He blinked, realizing he had been silent for several moments, lost in recollection. Sorry, he said, refocusing on the celestial strategist. Just remembering. Something in his expression must have revealed the nature of his memories, for Sora's professional demeanor softened momentarily. The ascension, she said, not as a question. I've reviewed the records. It was unprecedented. That's one word for it, Goku agreed, turning his attention back to the chronograph. Look, Sora, I understand the Conclave's concerns. But I need you to understand something too. I didn't ask for this responsibility, but I'll carry it the best way I know how. Sometimes that means making decisions they don't agree with. The Conclave has maintained cosmic balance since the beginning of time. I know, Goku interrupted gently. But they've never faced anything like Chronos before. They've never watched everything they loved being unmade before their eyes. I have. Sora opened her mouth to deliver what would undoubtedly be another carefully reasoned counter-argument, but the chronograph suddenly flashed crimson, emitting a discordant tone that reverberated throughout the nexus. Both Guardian and Strategist immediately turned their attention to the display. Timeline breach, Sora identified, her fingers dancing across the interface. Epsilon Sector. Coordinates 783-452-901. Pattern indicates. She stopped abruptly, eyes widening in alarm. Void Eater manifestation. Goku's expression darkened. Show me. The chronograph's display shifted, zooming into the affected timeline, a reality where Earth's technological development had progressed far more rapidly than in most variants. The breach app. ARED is a writhing darkness spreading across the timeline's otherwise stable signature, consuming its light and leaving nothingness in its wake. Initial analysis suggests containment is still possible, Sora reported, professionalism overriding her earlier disagreement. Breach point is localized to a single nexus event. Probability of successful intervention, 78.3%, declining by 0.5% per temporal unit. Goku nodded, already gathering his power for the jump between realities. I need to go now. The Void Eaters grow stronger with each moment they feed. The Conclave protocols suggest, we don't have time for protocols. Goku said firmly, every second we delay, more of that timeline is consumed, more people cease to exist. Sora's lips pressed into a thin line. The Conclave will not approve of unilateral action. Then they can fire me, Goku replied with a flash of his old irreverent humor. Oh wait. They can't. Before Sora could respond, the chronograph emitted another alarm, this one higher-pitched and more urgent. New data flashed across the display, causing both observers to tense. Secondary analysis complete, Sora read, her voice tight with controlled concern. Void Eater M. ANF station shows signs of artificial direction. Guardian, this breach wasn't random. Something, or someone, is controlling the Void Eaters. Controlling them. That should be impossible, Goku frowned, studying the patterns. Void Eaters are pure entropy. You might as well try to control a black hole. Nevertheless, the evidence is conclusive. The consumption pattern shows deliberate targeting of specific chronological nodes. Sora manipulated the display, highlighting a series of interconnected events. See these decision points. They're being systematically eliminated, creating a cascading alteration effect downstream in the timeline. Goku studied the pattern with growing concern. It's like someone's pruning a tree, cutting away specific branches to force growth in another direction. An apt metaphor, Sora conceded. But the implications are disturbing. If someone has found a way to harness Void Eaters as weapons, no timeline is truly safe. Even Alpha-class pristine timelines could be vulnerable. The guardian of all timelines straightened, decision made. I'm going to Epsilon-783. You return to the Conclave and brief them on this development. We'll need their resources foe. A multiverse-wide investigation if this is happening elsewhere. Sora hesitated, clearly torn between protocol and pragmatism. The Conclave will demand your presence for any formal response. And they'll have it after I've contained this breach. Goku's tone made it clear the matter wasn't open for discussion. People are being erased from existence while we debate, Sora. After a moment, the celestial strategist nodded, though reluctance was evident in her rigid posture. Very well, I shall inform the Conclave of your decision. But Guardian, her violet eyes locked with his, be careful. If someone is indeed controlling the Void Eaters, they possess power approaching your own. This could be a trap. Goku's expression softened at her concern. I appreciate the warning. I'll stay alert. With a formal nod that nonetheless conveyed genuine concern, Sora activated her dimensional transport, disappearing in a shimmer of light to fulfill her duty to the Celestial Conclave. Alone in the Nexus, Goku took a moment to center himself, gathering the unique energy required for timeline traversal. Unlike instant transmission, which moved him through space within a single reality, jumping B. Edwin timelines demanded a fundamentally different technique, one that allowed him to step outside the normal flow of time and space completely. Focusing on the coordinates displayed in the chronograph, Goku envisioned the affected timeline in its entirety, not just its physical dimensions, but its unique quantum signature, its probability matrix, its causal structure. In his mind's eye, he became one with the timeline, feeling its wounds as if they were injuries to his own body. Then, with a flash of golden light, he vanished from the Nexus. Materializing in timeline Epsilon-783, Goku immediately understood why the breach had occurred here. This world vibrated with technological innovation, the very atmosphere charged with a peculiar energy signature he'd encountered only rarely before, AF. Fusion of natural ki with artificial power sources. He stood atop a gleaming skyscraper that would have seemed futuristic even in Capsule Corporation's most advanced facilities. The megalopolis sprawled below him. Vehicles soaring between buildings on anti-gravity technology, holographic advertisements shimmering in the air, citizens augmented with cybernetic enhancements going about their daily lives. But amidst this technological marvel, Goku sensed the wrongness immediately, a void of nothingness spreading from the city's eastern district, consuming reality itself. Those caught in its path didn't die, they simply ceased to be. Along with any memory or record of their existence. Buildings, streets, people, all vanishing into absolute nothingness as the Void Eaters consumed their timeline signature. Goku extended his senses, searching for the epicenter of the breach. There, a research facility approximately 3 kilometers east, its distinctive energy signature fluctuating wildly as reality unraveled around it. Without hesitation, he launched himself toward it, his aura barely visible as he moved faster than this world's technology could track. The research complex occupied an entire city block, its architecture a blend of flowing curves and sharp angles that spoke of both aesthetic design and functional purpose. But now, portions of the structure were simply missing. Not destroyed, not damaged, absent. As if they had never been constructed in the first place. Landing in what remained of the central courtyard, Goku extended his awareness further, searching for survivors. Saint of the complex had already been consumed, but he detected a single life force, bright, determined, and unmistakably familiar despite having never encountered it before. A soul resonance that matched countless others he had known across different timelines. Following the signature, Goku phased through what remained of the building's walls, making his way to a reinforced laboratory deep beneath the surface. There, surrounded by failing energy shields and desperately working at a console, was a woman he instantly recognized as a temporal constant, a soul that appeared across countless realities. In different forms but always with the same core essence. This variant was tall and lean, with short-cropped violet hair framing a face dominated by intensely focused green eyes and a permanent furrow between her brows. Her lab coat bore insignia Goku didn't recognize, but the determined set of her jaw as she fought to save her work was unmistakable. "Dr. Voltage, I presume," he said, materializing fully into her reality. The woman spun, a modified key pistol appearing in her hand with practiced ease. To her credit, she didn't waste time with questions about how he'd appeared or who he was. She simply assessed him as a potential threat or ally with clinical efficiency. "If you're here to stop me, you're wasting your time," she said, her voice crisp and rapid. "The containment field is already failing. In approximately 3 minutes, this entire research center, and everyone in it, will cease to have ever existed." Her eyes narrowed. "Including you, regardless of how you bypassed security." Goku stepped forward, untroubled by the weapon. "I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to stop that." He gestured toward the spreading void visible through the laboratory's reinforced windows. "And it's not a natural phenomenon, drive. Voltage. Someone is controlling it." The scientist's eyes widened fractionally, not with fear, but with intellectual curiosity. "Controlling a chronological dissolution event. That's theoretically impossible. The entropy cascade should be random once initiated. Theory doesn't always match reality," Goku replied, moving toward her workstation. "What were you researching here?" Dr. Voltage hesitated, then apparently decided that with existence itself unraveling around them, secrecy was a moot point. "Chronological engineering, specifically, the creation of stable, temporal bubbles to preserve information through causal disruption events." She gestured to the complex apparatus occupying the center of the laboratory. "This prototype was designed to create a pocket dimension outside normal timeline flow," Goku finished, recognizing the technology despite its unique implementation. "You were building a time vault." She blinked, momentarily surprised by his understanding. "Yes, exactly. But something interfered with the initial test sequence. Instead of forming a stable bubble, it created a breach point, a vulnerability in our timeline's structure." Her expression darkened. "Something exploited that breach immediately, as if it had been waiting for the opportunity." "It was," Goku confirmed grimly. "Dr. Voltage, I need you to save whatever data you can and come with me. This timeline can still be preserved, but we have to act quickly." The scientist studied him with renewed intensity. "You're not from this reality," she stated rather than asked. "Your quantum signature is different, older, more complex." Her eyes widened slightly. You're a chronological constant, a nexus being. I'm the guardian of all timelines, Goku said simply. And right now, yours needs protection. Before Drive, Voltage could respond, the laboratory shuddered violently as another section of reality disappeared. Warning alarms blared as the containment field surrounding the lab flickered dangerously. Field integrity at 17%, announced an automated system. Chronological dissolution imminent. Emergency protocols initiated. Too late for protocols, Drive. Voltage muttered, fingers flying across her console. Initiating core memory transfer. Authorization Voltage Alpha 97. Acknowledged, responded the system. Transferring research core to quantum buffer. A small device on the workstation glowed briefly, then emitted a soft chime. Doctor. Voltage snatched it up, securing it within an inner pocket of her lab coat. That's all I can save, she said, earning back to Goku with surprising composure given the circumstances. Now, guardian of all timelines, if you have a plan to prevent total dissolution, I suggest implementing it immediately. Goku nodded, impressed by her calm under pressure. I need to reach the breach point. Where exactly did the prototype activate? Sub-level 5, containment chamber 3, she replied without hesitation. Quote, but it's gone now, consumed by whatever came through the breach. Not gone, Goku corrected. Unwritten. There's a difference, and it matters for what I'm about to do. He extended his hand to her. Stay close. This will feel unusual. Doctor. Voltage arched an eyebrow but placed her hand in his without further comment. The moment contact was established, Goku extended his temporal awareness around them both, creating a protective bubble that would shield them from the effects of chronological dissolution. Brace yourself, he warned. We're going to move through unwritten space. With that, go. Goku pulled them both into a state of partial phase shifting, a technique he had developed that allowed him to exist partially outside normal reality while still interacting with it. To an observer, they would have appeared to become transparent, their forms shimmering with golden energy as they moved through solid matter as if it were no more substantial than fog. They descended through the laboratory floor, passing through multiple levels of the research facility until reaching the designated sub-level. What they found there defied conventional description. Where containment chamber 3 shoal D have been existed a writhing sphere of absolute nothingness, not darkness, not empty space, but the complete absence of existence itself. Surrounding this impossibility floated countless motes of unlight, the Void Eaters. Entities of pure entropy that consumed the very concept of being. But what truly confirmed Sora's analysis was the unmistakable pattern to their movement. The Void Eaters weren't swarming randomly. They flowed in precise formations, expanding outward from the breach in geometric patterns too perfect to be natural. Someone's conducting them, Drive. Voltage whispered, her scient, IFIC mind immediately grasping the implications. Like a symphony of uncreation. Yes, Goku agreed grimly. And I need to find out who. Maintaining their phase-shifted state, Goku approached the breach, careful to keep their protective temporal bubble intact. As they drew nearer, he felt resistance, not physical, but a fundamental opposition to his presence, as if reality itself was being warped to repel him specifically. Interesting, he murmured, studying the phenomenon. Whoever's doing this knows about me. They've attuned the breach to reject my temporal signature. Doctor. Voltage's eyes narrowed in concentration. Can you counteract it? Yes, but not subtly, Goku replied. I'll need to force my way through, which will alert the controller to my presence, if they don't already know I'm here. What's the alternative? She asked pragmatically. There isn't one. Goku's expression hardened with determination. Get ready. This will be intense. Gathering his power, Goku began to realign his temporal signature, shifting through multiple frequencies until he found resonance patterns that could penetrate the breach's defensive measures. Gold and silver energy coruscated around Th.M. as he systematically dismantled the barriers preventing their entry. With a sound like reality itself tearing, the breach reluctantly yielded, creating an opening just large enough for them to pass through. Without hesitation, Goku pulled them forward, plunging into the void between timelines. The transitional space defied comprehension, a non-dimension where the laws of physics existed only as vague suggestions. Colors that had no names in any mortal language swirled around them, while conceptual shapes formed and dissolved without pattern or purpose. Had drive, voltage not been protected by Goku's temporal bubble, her mind would have shattered instantly from exposure to this realm not meant for mortal comprehension. Even with protection, she gasped, her analytical mind struggling to process what couldn't be quantified. This is, I never imagined. Try not to focus on any one thing, Goku advised, guiding them through the chaos with practiced skill. We're passing through the quantum foam between realities. Look for patterns, not details. As they progressed deeper into the void, those patterns indeed began to emerge, currents of probability flowing through the chaos, streams of potential connecting disparate realities. And through these currents moved dark shapes, void eaters in their native environment, flowing not randomly but in coordinated patterns that all originated from a central point. There, Goku indicated, pointing toward a distant structure that somehow maintained coherence amidst the quantum uncertainty. That shouldn't exist here. Nothing structured should be able to maintain form in this space. The structure resembled a fortress composed of compressed timelines, fragments of reality fused together into something new and fundamentally wrong. It radiated wrongness, an affront to the natural order that even drive, voltage, with her limited extra-dimensional senses, could perceive. A timeline manipulator's stronghold, Goku explained grimly. Someone has been harvesting chronological energy to build a base outside normal reality. Is that even possible, Doctor? Voltage asked, her scientist's curiosity momentarily overriding her survival instinct. It shouldn't be, Goku replied. Which makes whoever built this extremely dangerous, and exactly who we need to find. As they approached the impossible fortress, Goku suddenly stiffened, sensing a disturbance in the chronological flows surrounding them. We've been detected, he warned, strengthening their protective bubble as dark energy began to coalesce around them. The attack came without warning, not a physical strike, but a temporal one. Reality itself seemed to convulse, attempting to retroactively erase their journey through the void. Had it been directed at anyone else, it would have succeeded instantly. But Goku was no longer merely a warrior. He was the guardian of all timelines, with authority over the fundamental structures of reality itself. With a gesture that bent space and time, he neutralized the attack, converting its entropic energy into a stabilizing force that actually strengthened their position. Clever, came a voice from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the void with unnatural resonance. The rumors of your ascension were not exaggerated, Son Goku. The Guardian narrowed his eyes, scanning the quantum flows for the source. Show yourself, he commanded, his verses OICE carrying the weight of multiversal authority. Laughter rippled through the non-space, distorting reality around them. All in good time, Guardian. All in good time. For now, consider this a greeting, a formal introduction between opposing forces. You're consuming entire timelines, Goku replied, anger evident beneath his controlled tone. Erasing countless lives from existence. That goes beyond opposition. It's genocide on a scale beyond comprehension. Semantics, dismissed the voice. Those timelines were flawed, developmental dead ends in the grand evolutionary scheme. I merely prune what would wither naturally. That's not your decision to make, Goku countered. Every timeline has value. Every life matters. Another ripple of laughter, this one tinged with genuine amusement. How very mortal of you. Despite your ascension, still clinging to the values of the world that shaped you. The voice hardened. But the multiverse doesn't operate on human morality, Guardian. It functions on principles of efficiency, evolution, and necessity. Doctor. Voltage stepped forward, her scientific pragmatism asserting itself. Whoever you are, you're violating fundamental conservation laws. Timeline energy cannot be created or destroyed without catastrophic consequences to the multiverse as a whole. Ah, the brilliant drive. Lena Voltage, the voice acknowledged, causing the scientist to stiffen at the use of her full name. Your research into chronological engineering was what drew my attention to your timeline in the first place. Such promising work, such limited application. You think too small, Doctor. And you think too much of yourself, Goku interrupted, having pinpointed the energy signature behind the voice. Hiding in the shadows, attacking from a distance, those aren't the actions of someone confident in their power. A pulse of irritation disturbed the quantum flows. Provocation, Guardian. How beneath your station. Not provocation, Goku replied evenly. Observation. If you truly believed in your cause, you'd defend it openly. Silence stretched across the void, tension building in the swirling chaos surrounding them. Then, with a distortion that sent ripples through reality itself, a figure materialized before them, humanoid in basic form, but composed of shifting temporal energy rather than flesh and blood. Very well, the entity said, its voice now localized to the apparition before them. I am the architect, first of the new chronological order that will replace the failing systems you so desperately preserve. Goku studied the being carefully. No. Ting how its form incorporated fragments of multiple timelines, evidence of consumption on a massive scale. You're using the Void Eaters to harvest timeline energy, he stated. Converting existence itself into power. An oversimplification, but essentially correct, the architect confirmed with casual arrogance. The current multiverse structure is inefficient, countless redundant timelines wasting energy on virtually identical outcomes. I merely streamline the process. By erasing entire realities, drive. Voltage interjected, disgust evident in her tone. Countless lives unmade to fuel your ambitions. The architect's form shifted, focusing attention on the scientist. A researcher like yourself should appreciate the necessity of sacrifice in pursuit of progress, Doctor. How many test subjects perished in the development of your temporal bubble technology? None, she replied coldly. Because unlike you, I understand that advancement built on destruction isn't progress, it's merely destruction with pretensions. The entity seemed to consider this, its form rippling with conflicting timeline energies. Fascinating. Your counterparts in other timelines were not always so principled. Goku had heard enough. Your experiments end now, Architect. The Void Eaters will be contained, and you will answer to the Celestial Conclave for your actions. For a moment, the Architect's form stabilized, revealing a more defined shape, vaguely masculine, with features that seemed to shift between different possibilities, as if unable to settle on a single appearance. I think not, Guardian. You see, this encounter was never about confrontation, merely confirmation. Confirmation of what? Goku demanded, power gathering around him as he prepared for whatever might come next. That you are indeed as formidable as reported. The architect replied simply, and that direct confrontation would be premature. Before Goku could respond, the quantum flows surrounding the fortress began to pulse rapidly. Timeline fragments accelerating in their orbits around the structure. The architect's form began to dissipate, spreading into the surrounding chaos. Consider this timeline a gift, Guardian, a demonstration of my reach. Nothing more. The voice was fading, merging with the quantum background. We shall meet again when the board is properly set. This isn't a game, Goku shouted, launching himself toward the dissolving entity. But it was too late. The architect had already dispersed, its consciousness spreading through the quantum foam until no distinct signature remained. The fortress itself began to fold inward, collapsing into dimensions beyond even Goku's perception. Within seconds, all evidence of its existence had vanished, leaving only disturbances in the timeline flows to mark where it had been. Beside him, drive. Voltage exhaled slowly. I'm guessing that's not the standard conclusion to your interventions. No, Goku admitted, scanning the void for any remaining trace of the architect. This is unprecedented. No entity should be able to manipulate timeline energy with that level of precision, not without authority from the Celestial Conclave. And yet here we are, she observed dryly. What happens to my timeline now? Goku refocused, extending his senses back toward Epsilon-783. To his surprise, the Void Eaters had withdrawn, the breach closing behind them as if sealed by an unseen hand. The attack has stopped, he reported, bewildered. The architect wasn't lying, he's withdrawing his forces. A tactical retreat, suggested drive, voltage, RP, art of a larger strategy we don't yet understand, Goku replied grimly. Either way, we need to return to your timeline and assess the damage. Creating a temporal pathway back to Epsilon-783 required significantly less effort than their journey into the void had demanded. The architect's withdrawal had stabilized the quantum boundaries, allowing Goku to easily navigate the return journey. They materialized in what remained of the research facility, finding much of the structure intact despite the extensive damage visible earlier. The Void Eater's consumption had been halted before reaching critical mass, leaving the timeline wounded but viable. Dr. Voltage immediately moved to a functioning console, fingers dancing across the interface as she assessed the situation. Timeline integrity at 72% and stabilizing. She reported after a moment. We've lost approximately 28% of local reality, mostly concentrated in the eastern research sector. And the people in that sector? Goku asked quietly, already knowing the answer. Her expression hardened. Gone. Not dead. Never existed. Current records show this facility is 28% smaller than original specifications, with staffing adjusted proportionally. She swallowed hard. Colleagues I worked with yesterday are now gaps in my memory. I know someone should be there, but I can't recall who. Goku placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. Timeline manipulation leaves scars even I can't fully heal. But I promise you, those people aren't forgotten completely. Their existence is preserved in the Chronos Nexus records. Cold comfort. Tea for those of us left behind with half-formed memories, she replied, though without bitterness. After a moment, she straightened, professionalism reasserting itself. What happens now, Guardian? Your architect is still out there. Still capable of weaponizing Void Eaters against other timelines. Now I report to the Celestial Conclave, Goku said, his expression serious. This threat requires a coordinated response across all timeline sectors. Dr. Voltage hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been forming since their encounter in the void. And what about me? My research? Research inadvertently created the breach point the architect exploited, Goku noted carefully. But it also demonstrated the theoretical possibility of creating stable structures outside normal T-meline flow, knowledge that could be crucial in understanding how the architect built his fortress. He considered the brilliant scientist before him, another temporal constant he'd encountered countless times across the multiverse. Always dedicated to understanding the fundamental nature of reality, always pushing boundaries others feared to approach. Dr. Lena Voltage, he said formally, I'm offering you a choice. You can remain here, continue your research under timeline supervision to prevent further breaches, or you can accompany me to the Chronos Nexus, where your expertise could help you. Counter the architect's techniques directly. Her eyes widened slightly, the implications immediately clear to her analytical mind. You're offering to take me outside my timeline, into the control center of all reality. I am. Goku confirmed. Your understanding of chronological engineering is uniquely valuable, especially now that we know someone has weaponized the technology. But I won't force you. The choice must be yours. Dr. Voltage glanced around the damaged laboratory, at the work that had defined her existence, at the colleagues whose names she could no longer fully remember. Then she straightened. Decision made with characteristic efficiency. My research was always meant to protect reality, not endanger it, she said firmly. If this architect is using similar principles to destroy timelines, then my expertise should be used to stop him. She met Goku's gaze directly. I accept your offer, Guardian. Goku nodded, a small smile forming despite the gravity of the situation. Then gather whatever you need. Once we leave this timeline, returning will be complicated. As Dr. Voltage moved efficiently around the laboratory, collecting data crystals and essential equipment, Goku extended his senses outward, scanning the recovering timeline for any lingering threats. The Void Eaters had indeed withdrawn completely, leaving only the damage already inflicted. But something about the encounter continued to trouble him. The architect had withdrawn too easily, had revealed himself too willingly. This hadn't been a failed attack, it had been a calculated demonstration, a message delivered with precision. We shall meet again when the board is properly set. The words echoed ominously in Goku's mind as he prepared to return to the Chronos Nexus with Dr. Voltage, and the knowledge that a new threat had emerged, one capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality itself. As the scientist completed her preparations, Goku felt a familiar presence brush against his consciousness, Sora Kai. Reaching out from the Celestial Conclave. Guardian, her telepathic voice carried a rare note of urgency. The Conclave has detected multiple simultaneous breaches across various timeline sectors. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was coordinated. Return immediately. Goku acknowledged the message with grim determination. Preparing for transit now. Alert the conclave. We're dealing with something unprecedented. They know, Sora replied, tension evident even in mental communication. Guardian, there appears to be an assassination attempt being organized against you. The conclave has intercepted communications suggesting a specialized operative has been deployed to eliminate the Timeline Authority. An assassin. Goku couldn't help the small, humorless laugh that escaped him. How many had tried to kill him over his long existence? From King Piccolo to Frieza, Cell to Majin Buu, Beerus to Jiren, the list of those who had attempted to end his life was longer than most beings' entire existence. Tell the conclave I'll handle it, he responded confidently. For now, we focus on the immediate threat, this architect and his Void Eaters. As Dr. Voltage approached, equipment packed and ready for departure, Goku offered his hand once more. Ready, she nodded, accepting his grip with surprising firmness. As ready as anyone can be to leave their entire reality behind. With a smile that carried both understanding and reassurance, Goku channeled his power, creating the unique energy signature required for returning to the Chronos Nexus. Golden light enveloped them both, reality blurring around them as they prepared to step beyond the boundaries of timeline Epsilon-783. Dr. Voltage, Goku said as the transition began, welcome to the bigger picture. In a flash of light, they vanished, leaving behind a wounded timeline slowly healing itself, and stepping into a multiverse on the brink of unprecedented crisis. Chapter 2. Balance of Power. The Chronos Nexus hummed with activity as Goku and Dr. Lena Voltage materialized on the central platform. The scientist staggered slightly, momentary disorientation overwhelming even her formidable intellect as her consciousness adjusted to existence outside her native timeline. Easy, Goku steadied her with a gentle hand. Timeline transit is rougher the first time. Your molecular structure is realigning to multiversal constants. Lena blinked rapidly, her analytical mind already cataloging the sensations. Fascinating. It feels like my atoms are remembering configurations they never actually experienced. She straightened, eyes widening as she fully registered her surroundings. As this, the control center of all reality. Pretty much, Goku confirmed with a casual ease that belied the cosmic significance of their location. Welcome to the Chronos Nexus. Before Lena could properly absorb the majesty of the crystalline chamber with its floating platforms and luminous bridges, an urgent commotion drew their attention. A delegation of celestial beings was approaching, led by the unmistakable figure of Sora Kai. Her normally composed features were tight with barely contained urgency. Guardian, she addressed Goku formally. Though her eyes flickered briefly to Lena with evident disapproval, the situation has escalated. The conclave demands immediate consultation. Goku nodded, his expression shifting to the serious demeanor that still surprised those who remembered him primarily as the carefree warrior of old. How many timelines affected? 17 confirmed breaches across all primary sectors, Sora reported. Her silver-blue hair shimmering under the Nexus lights as she manipulated a hovering data projection. Pattern analysis suggests deliberate targeting of Nexus points, critical junctions where timeline branches converge. The architect, Goku confirmed grimly. We encountered him directly in Epsilon-783. Sora's violet eyes widened fractionally. You made contact with the entity. More than contact, Lena interjected, stepping forward with the confidence of someone accustomed to being heard in intellectual settings. He specifically identified himself as the architect, and read to a chronological order he's establishing. He's harvesting timeline energy through controlled Void Eater deployment. The assembled celestial delegates exchanged alarmed glances. 1. A being W. Ho's form shimmered between different possible manifestations, spoke in a voice like distant thunder. Impossible. Void Eaters cannot be controlled. They are entropy incarnate. Apparently someone forgot to tell the architect that. Lena replied dryly. Sora's gaze sharpened on the scientist. And you are Dr. Lena Voltage, Quantum Chronology Division, Epsilon 783, she introduced herself succinctly. My research facility was ground zero for the breach. The Guardian brought me here because my work on chronological engineering may help explain how the architect is manipulating Void Eaters. The Guardian exceeded his authority, stated another delegate coldly. Extraction of timeline natives without conclave approval is explicitly forbidden by the Covenant of Temporal Sovereignty. Goku's expression remained impassive, but the subtle shift in his energy made several delegates step back involuntarily. With all due respect to the conclave's protocols, we're facing an unprecedented threat. Dr. Voltage's expertise is directly relevant to understanding our enemy's capabilities. Sora interceded before the tension could escalate further. The proper forum for this discussion is the conclave chamber. They await your report, Guardian. Her tone softened marginally. They're concerned. Goku recognized the diplomatic understatement for what it was. The celestial conclave, the assembly of godly beings who had maintained multiverse stability since the dawn of time, didn't appreciate surprises, especially ones that threatened their carefully maintained order. Understood, he replied. Turning to Lena, he added, the chronograph will provide access to whatever research resources you need. I'll return after briefing the conclave. The scientist nodded, already eyeing the massive multidimensional display with professional interest. I'll begin preliminary analysis of the breach patterns. Perhaps there's an identifiable signature to the architect's techniques. Sora will assign someone to assist you, Goku said, ignoring the celestial strategist's subtle frown of disapproval. As the Guardian prepared to depart for the conclave chamber, a warning prickled at the edge of his consciousness. Danger sense honed through countless battles triggering despite the supposed security of the Nexus. He turned slowly, scanning the crystalline expanse with senses that transcended normal perception. There, a distortion in the light reflecting off one of the upper platforms. Not natural refraction, but something else. Something that shouldn't exist within the Nexus. Everyone down, Goku shouted, moving with impossible speed as a shadow detached itself from a crystalline pillar and streaked toward him. What followed happened too quickly for most observers to process. A blade of absolute darkness sliced through the space Goku had occupied milliseconds earlier. The Guardian pivoted, golden energy flaring around his hand as he deflected a second strike aimed at his throat. The attacker, a figure wrapped in what appeared to be living shadows, executed a flawless recovery, twisting in midair to launch a third attack. For 3 heartbeats, Goku merely defended, analyzing his ENT's technique with the practiced eye of a master martial artist. The assassin was exceptional. Movements precise, attacks perfectly timed, body control impeccable. But there was something more, something that made this opponent uniquely dangerous even to him. The shadow blade passed through a defensive energy barrier that should have been impenetrable, slicing a shallow cut across Goku's cheek before he could fully evade. Timeline negation technology, he realized with grim surprise. Weapons that exist outside normal causality. Taking the offensive, Goku launched a counterattack, not with raw power that might damage the Nexus, but with precisely controlled martial techniques. His opponent matched him move for move, the shadows surrounding their form rippling like liquid darkness as they flow. Wed between attacks and defenses with inhuman grace. The assembled delegates had scattered for safety, but Lena Voltage remained remarkably calm, her scientist's mind cataloging the impossible physics of the confrontation even as she sought cover behind a crystalline console. Only Sora Kai maintained her position, her hands weaving complex patterns that reinforced the Nexus's security protocols. Dimensional intrusion detected, she announced, voice tight with concentration. Unknown access vector, implementing lockdown procedures. The assassin, realizing their element of surprise was lost, changed tactics. With a gesture that bent light around their form, they hurled what appeared to be crystalline shards toward the assembled delegates, not aiming to kill, but to create chaos and division of attention. Goku responded instantly, teleporting to intercept the projectiles before they could reach their targets. It was the opening the assassin had been waiting for. As the Guardian rematerialized, the shadow-wrapped figure appeared directly behind him, blade aimed at the precise point where neck met skull, one of the few vulnerabilities in his enhanced physiology. What the assassin hadn't anticipated was that Goku no longer needed to see attacks to counter them. His ultra instinct, evolved beyond even the form he had mastered in the Tournament of Power, responded automatically. He shifted minutely, the blade passing through the afterimage of where his neck had been as he simultaneously delivered a precise strike to his attacker's solar plexus. The impact sent the assassin flying backward, crashing through a crystalline railing and plummeting toward the lower levels of the Nexus. With a thought, Goku teleported below the falling figure, catching them before impact and immediate. Lee immobilizing them with a specialized energy binding that counteracted their timeline negation capabilities. As the shadows surrounding the assassin dissipated under the binding's effect, their true form was revealed, a woman of striking appearance, with features that blended multiple ethnic origins into an unsettling, predatory beauty. Her hair, black as the void between stars, was pulled back in a severe style that emphasized sharp cheekbones and eyes of such dark brown they appeared almost black. Despite being restrained, her expression remained coldly professional, assessing rather than afraid. "Impressive security breach," Goku commented, genuine respect in his voice despite the circumstances. "The Nexus is supposed to be impenetrable to unauthorized entry." The assassin remained silent, her unnerving gaze fixed on him with calculating intensity. Sora and the delegates approached cautiously, the celestial strategist's expression a mixture of shock and outrage. "This is unprecedented," she declared. "No unauthorized entity has ever penetrated the Nexus defenses. Until today," Goku observed grimly. He studied the captured assassin more carefully, noting the specialized equipment integrated into her form-fitting combat suit, technology he recognized from multiple timelines, combined in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "Who sent you?" The woman's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. But she offered no response. Timeline negation weapons, multidimensional infiltration capabilities, combat training at the highest level, Goku enumerated, his expression thoughtful. "You're not just an assassin. You're a timeline hunter." Something flickered in the woman's eyes, surprise, quickly masked. "Guardian," Sora interjected urgently, "timeline hunters are theoretical entities. There's no confirmed evidence they actually exist." "There is now," Goku replied, nodding toward their captive. "The real question is who would have the knowledge and resources to create and deploy one." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Or who would have reason to want the guardian of all timelines eliminated?" Before further discussion could occur, the chronograph flared with urgent alerts, its display shifting to highlight multiple new disturbances across the multiverse. "Guardian," called one of the celestial delegates. "Mass timeline corruption detected in the Omega sector. Void Eaters swarming in unprecedented numbers." Goku's expression darkened. This was a diversion, he realized, glancing at the captive assassin. "Your mission wasn't really to kill me. It was to keep me occupied." While something bigger was set in motion. The assassin's expression remained impassive, but Goku had spent lifetimes reading opponents in battle. The minute widening of her pupils confirmed his suspicion. "Sora, secure the prisoner and continue the Nexus lockdown," he ordered, already moving toward the chronograph. "Dr. Voltage, I need your analysis of these new breach patterns immediately." Lin hurried to join him at the multidimensional display, her initial awe at the Nexus quickly giving way to professional focus. "Multiple coordinated breaches," she confirmed, fingers dancing across the interface with surprising familiarity. "But the pattern is different from Epsilon-783. These aren't surgical extractions, they're wholesale corruptions. The architect is escalating," Goku said grimly. "Testing boundaries, seeing how we respond." "Guardian," Sora called, having secured the assassin with additional metaphysical restraints, "the Conclave is demanding your presence more urgently than ever." "These developments, the Conclave will have to wait," Goku interrupted, a rare edge in his voice. "People are dying. No, being erased from existence, while we stand here talking." "I'm going to Omega Sector." "Alone?" Sora questioned sharply. "Against multiple coordinated Void Eater swarms. That's tactically unsound even for someone of your power level." Goku's expression softened slightly at her evident concern. "Not alone," he said, turning to Lena Voltage. "Dr. Voltage, your expertise in chronological engineering could be valuable on site. Are you willing to accompany me?" The scientist didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. Field observation will provide data laboratory analysis never could." Sora stepped forward, authority radiating from her celestial form. "Guardian, I must formally object. Taking an untrained timeline native into active Void Eater manifestations violates at least 7 Conclave protocols, not to mention exposing drive voltage to unnecessary risk." "Objection noted," Goku acknowledged respectfully. "But time is literally of the essence, Sora. While the Conclave debates protocol, entire timelines are being consumed. His expression hardened with determination. I was appointed guardian to protect all timelines, not just those the Conclave deems important enough to save. The celestial strategist held his gaze for a long moment, internal conflict evident in her violet eyes. Then, to everyone's surprise, she straightened and announced, "Then I shall accompany you as well." Sora. Goku blinked in genuine surprise. "If you insist on this course of action, Prope. Our protocol dictates conclave representation," she stated formally. Then, her voice softening marginally, she added, "Besides, your tactical approach could benefit from strategic oversight." A small smile tugged at Goku's lips. "Are you saying I'm reckless, Sora?" "I would never be so direct, Guardian," she replied primly, though something almost like humor flickered in her eyes. "Merely noting that your approach tends toward the improvisational." Lina looked between them with undisguised interest. "Should I be taking notes on this dynamic?" Goku chuckled despite the gravity of the situation. "Prepare for transit to Omega Sector. Primary target is timeline Omega 117, the corruption epicenter according to the chronograph." As they made final preparations, Goku approached the restrained assassin once more. "You're going to be here when I get back," he told her, not as a threat but as simple fact. "And then we'll have a proper conversation about who sent you and why." For the first time, the woman spoke, her voice a low, melodic contralto that carried surprising warmth despite her deadly profession. "If you survive, Guardian." Goku smiled, the expression reminiscent of his younger da's facing opponents of seemingly overwhelming power. "I always do. It's kind of my thing." Leaving the assassin in the custody of the celestial delegates, Goku returned to Sora and Lina. "Ready." The celestial strategist nodded formally while the scientist gave a thumbs up that seemed incongruously casual given the circumstances. Creating the specialized energy field required for group timeline transit, Goku enveloped all three of them in golden light. "Timeline Omega 117, he announced, focusing his power. "Brace yourselves. Corrupted timelines are turbulent." With a flash that momentarily outshone even the Nexus's ambient radiance, they vanished, leaving behind a secured assassin and a celestial conclave facing its greatest crisis since the multiverse's creation. The transition to timeline Omega 117 was violently disorienting, reality itself seeming to resist their arrival. When the golden light of transit faded, they found themselves in a world that defied expectations, not the technological marvel of Epsilon 783. But a landscape of medieval castles, walled cities, and primitive technology. Yet this was no ordinary medieval timeline. The sky above them swirled with unnatural colors, purples, greens, and blacks that no natural atmosphere should produce. The land itself seemed wrong somehow, as if the fundamental laws of physics were being slowly rewritten. "Timeline corruption at 47% and accelerating," Sora reported, her celestial senses reading the reality around them. "Void Eater concentration highest in the northern quadrant, approximately 12 kilometers from our position." Goku nodded, orienting himself to the damaged timeline. "I sense a population center in that direction, a castle or fortified town. And there are people fighting there, not just against each other, but against something else." "Fighting Void Eaters?" Lina questioned skeptically. "How? Conventional weapons shouldn't affect entities that exist partially outside normal causality." "Let's find out," Goku replied, extending his hands to his companions. "Hold on. We'll use instant transmission to reach the battle." When they rematerialized moments later, the scene before them confirmed Goku's assessment. A massive stone fortress was under siege, but not by any conventional army. Writhing masses of living darkness swarmed against ancient walls reinforced with what appeared to be glowing runic inscriptions. Defenders along the battlements fought with weapons that shimmered with unnatural light, swords, bows, and spears that seemed capable of injuring the Void Eaters, driving them back temporarily before they reformed and attacked again. "Fascinating," Lina breathed, scientific curiosity momentarily overwhelming caution. "They've developed weapons capable of disrupting Void Eater cohesion. Some form of temporal stabilization technology, but implemented through, is that magic?" "Timeline-specific metaphysics," Sora corrected, studying the defenders with professional assessment. His reality developed along a path where what we might call magical principles were incorporated into their understanding of natural law. Their observation was interrupted as a section of wall began to crumble under concentrated Void Eater assault. Defenders rushed to reinforce the position, led by a striking figure that immediately captured Goku's attention, a woman in armor that combined cracked Ikal protection with freedom of movement, wielding twin short swords that blazed with golden energy reminiscent of his own. Her fighting style was magnificent, economical yet fluid, tactical yet adaptive. She called orders to her soldiers with the natural authority of someone born to command, her voice carrying across the battlefield with practiced projection. Fall back to secondary positions. Runic Core, reinforce the eastern breach. Archers, concentrated volley on the primary mass. As her forces responded with disciplined precision, the woman herself engaged a particularly large Void Eater manifestation that had breached the outer defenses. Her twin blades carved through the living darkness with surprising effectiveness, her movements suggesting formal training combined with extensive battlefield experience. She's good, Goku commented with professional appreciation. Really good. And fighting a losing battle, Sora observed clinically. Their weapons can disrupt individual Void Eaters temporarily. But the swarm is too numerous. This fortress will fall within the hour without intervention. Goku nodded. Decision made. Then we intervene. Doctor. Voltage. Stay with Sora. Analyze their weapons technology if you can. Anything that works against Void Eaters could be valuable information. Guardian. Sora began, formal protest evident in her tone. Direct interference in timeline conflicts is exactly what the Guardian is supposed to do when existence itself is at stake, Goku finished firmly. These people found a way to fight back against something that should be unstoppable. They deserve our help. Without waiting for further discussion, Goku launched himself toward the battlefield, golden energy flaring around him as he entered the fray. His appearance caused momentary confusion among both defenders and attackers, a stranger in strange clothing, descending from the sky like some divine intervention. The commanding woman was the first to react, adjusting her straw Chiji instantly to account for this new factor. Unknown ally at the western approach. She called to her forces. Maintain position and provide covering fire. Goku landed beside her with casual grace, offering a respectful nod. Looks like you could use some help. The woman assessed him with a single glance that took in everything from his unusual clothing to his confident stance. Her eyes, a King stormy gray, reflected tactical calculation rather than surprise at his sudden appearance. If you can fight, fight, she replied simply. If not, get inside the walls before you become another casualty. Goku smiled. I can fight. To demonstrate, he extended one hand toward an advancing wave of Void Eaters, golden energy coalescing around his palm. With a controlled burst of power specifica, LLY calibrated to affect multidimensional entities, he released a wave of chronological stabilization energy, the same force he used to repair damaged timelines, but weaponized. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Void Eaters caught in the blast didn't merely disperse temporarily as they did when struck by the defenders' weapons, they disintegrated completely, their entropic energy converted back into stable timeline matter. The battlefield fell momentarily silent, defenders and Void Eaters alike seeming to process what they had witnessed. The commanding woman recovered first, gray eyes widening fractionally before narrowing with renewed focus. Whatever you just did, she said evenly, can you do it again? Preferably there. She pointed toward the most heavily damaged section of wall, where Void Eaters were pouring through in increasing numbers. Absolutely, Goku replied, gathering more energy. But I can do better than that. I can clear the entire perimeter if your people can hold the breaches that already exist. She studied him for a heartbeat, some instinct apparently allowing her to trust this stranger despite the impossibility of his abilities. Eastern battlements need reinforcement most urgently. I'll redirect forces there while you handle the outer perimeter. Without waiting for acknowledgement, she turned to issue new orders, her voice carrying the absolute confidence of natural leadership. Goku watched her for a moment, impressed by her composure under extraordinary circumstances, then turned his attention to the task at hand. Rising into the air, he ioned himself above the fortress to gain maximum tactical advantage. The Void Eaters, sensing his power, began to converge on his position, exactly as he had intended. Drawing on his enhanced connection to timeline energy, Goku created a specialized technique he had developed for just such situations, a chronological restoration wave. Golden light expanded outward from his form in concentric circles, washing over the battlefield like ripples in a temporal pond. Where it touched the Void Eaters, they simply ceased to exist, their entropic energy converted back into the natural timeline flow. The wave continued outward, restoring damaged sections of landscape to their proper state, until it reached the furthest extent of the immediate battlefield. When the light faded, the attacking forces had been completely neutralized, leaving only the damage they had already inflicted as evidence they had ever existed. Goku descended to where the commanding woman stood on the battlements, surrounded by her equally astonished officers. To her credit, she maintained her composure, studying him with the careful assessment of someone accustomed to encountering the unexpected. "That was," she began, then shook her head slightly, apparently deciding there were no adequate words. Instead, she offered a warrior's salute, fist over heart. "Arya Stormheart, commander of the Free Territories. And you are Son Goku," he replied with a respectful bow of his head. "Guardian of all timelines." Recognition flickered in her eyes, not of him personally, but of his title. "The Guardian," she repeated softly. "The old prophecies speak of such a being. One who stands outside the flow of time itself." Her expression hardened with renewed focus. "Your arrival is well timed, Guardian. The Void Plague grows worse by the day. It's not a natural phenomenon," Goku informed her, glancing toward where Sora and Lina were approaching, having deemed it safe to leave their observation position. "Someone is deliberately targeting your timeline." Commander Stormheart's eyes narrowed dangerously. "We suspected as much. The attacks are too coordinated, too strategic to be random manifestations." She turned toward a heavily armored officer nearby. "Captain Fennel, oversee repair efforts and double the watch. The enemy may return with different tactics now." As the officer moved to comply, Arya returned her attention to Goku and his approaching companions. "You didn't come alone. This is Sora Kai, celestial strategist to the Conclave, and Dr. Lina Voltage, a chronological engineer." Goku introduced them as they joined the conversation. "They're helping me investigate the timeline attacks." Arya acknowledged them with formal nods, her demeanor professional but reserved. "You should come inside," she said, gesturing toward the fortress keep. "The Void Plague will return soon enough. They always do." Leading them through the battered fortress, Arya revealed a settlement that combined medieval architecture with unexpected technological advancements. Glowing runic circuits lined the walls, powering what appeared to be primitive shield generators. Soldiers wielded weapons that incorporated Stalin components alongside traditional steel. Healers treated the wounded using methods that blended herbal medicine with energy manipulation techniques. "Your civilization has developed some remarkable technologies," Lina observed, scientific curiosity evident in her voice. "Especially those weapons capable of affecting Void Eaters." "Necessity breeds innovation," Arya replied without slowing her stride. "When the Void Plague first appeared 3 years ago, conventional weapons passed right through them. Many good warriors died before our artificers developed the rune-forged blades." They entered a large central chamber that served as both war room and council hall. Maps covered the walls, not just of the immediate territory, but of what appeared to be the entire continent, with marked areas showing Void Eater manifestation points and territorial losses. "You've been systematically mapping the attacks," Sora noted with professional approval. "Looking for patterns and finding them," Arya confirmed, directing their attention to a particular map. The manifestations began along the eastern coastline, initially appearing random. But over time, they've formed a very specific pattern of advancement. Her finger traced a route across the map. "They're carving a path directly toward the Great Nexus." "The Great Nexus?" Goku questioned, immediately alert. "A place of power," Arya explained. "According to our most ancient texts, it's where the threads of destiny converge, a natural phenomenon that our ancestors built their most sacred temple around." Her expression grew troubled. "If the Void Plague reaches it, timeline collapse would accelerate exponentially," Sora finished grimly. "They're targeting your reality's quantum anchor point." Lina stepped closer to the map, studying it with scientific precision. "The attack pattern is almost identical to what we observed in my timeline, but with one significant difference: these manifestations are persistent, not surgical. They're not just extracting timeline energy, they're systematically corrupting it. Why target this specific timeline so aggressively? Goku wondered aloud, scanning the maps for additional insights. What makes Omega 117 special? Perhaps it's not the timeline itself that's the target, but something within it, Sora suggested. The Great Nexus you mentioned, Commander Stormheart, could it have properties beyond religious significance? Arya hesitated, then made a decision. Moving to a concealed panel in the wall, she retrieved an ancient leather-bound volume and placed it carefully on the central table. This text contains the accumulated knowledge of 20 generations of Guardian scholars, those tasked with protecting the Great Nexus. According to their observations, the Nexus doesn't just connect points within our world, it connects to other worlds entirely. A natural timeline convergence point, Sora breathed, violet eyes widening with realization. Extremely rare and incredible. Why valuable from a chronological engineering perspective? A shortcut between realities, Lena translated, excitement coloring her normally precise tone. If the architect gained control of such a nexus, he could potentially move between timelines without the energy expenditure normally required. It would exponentially increase his operational capacity. Goku's expression darkened as the implications became clear. He's not just harvesting energy. He's securing strategic assets for something bigger. The conversation was interrupted as the fortress trembled, dust falling from ancient stone ceilings. A soldier burst into the chamber, breathing heavily from exertion. Commander, they've returned, far more than before. And they're different somehow. Arya was moving before the report was complete, retrieving her twin blades from where they rested against the wall. How long until they reach the walls? Minutes at most, the soldier replied grimly. The Eastern Watch reports they're moving with purpose, targeting our weakest points. Goku exchanged glances with Sora and Lena. This isn't coincidence. The architect knows we're here. Then he's about to learn what happens when you corner a Stormheart, Arya declared, striding toward the exit with martial confidence. Guardian, your assistance would be welcome, but not expected. This is our fight too. It's everyone's fight, Goku corrected, falling into step beside her. Dr. Voltage, stay with the Guardian scholars. See if that text contains any technical information about the Great Nexus that might explain why it's being targeted. Lena nodded, already reaching for the ancient volume with barely contained scientific enthusiasm. I'll coordinate with Sora for analysis. As they emerged onto the battlements, the situation became immediately clear, and far more dire than the previous attack. The sky had darkened to an unnatural twilight, swirling with energy patterns that distorted the laws of physics themselves. Aproa, the fortress was not merely a swarm of Void Eaters, but what appeared to be a coordinated army of them, moving with tactical precision no entropic entity should possess. Most alarmingly, they had evolved. Where before they appeared as amorphous masses of living darkness, now they had taken more defined forms, approximations of humanoid shapes, wielding weapons formed from consolidated void energy. At their center moved a larger entity, a Void Eater that had consumed enough timeline energy to develop something approaching intelligence. They're adapting, Arya observed with grim professionalism, signaling her troops to their positions, becoming more like us to fight us more effectively. Goku studied the approaching force with the tactical assessment of a warrior who had faced countless enemies across multiple realities. Not just adapting, he corrected quietly. Being shaped. The architect is exerting direct control now. The lead entity raised what approximated an arm, pointing directly at the section of wall where they stood. The gesture was unmistakably purposeful, a commander identifying priority targets. They're coming for us specifically, Goku warned. You and me, Commander Stormheart. We've been identified as primary threats. Arya's expression hardened, but fear was noticeably absent from her stormy eyes. Then they'll find we're exactly that. She turned to her officers. Defensive formation Delta, protect the civilian quarters at all costs. As her forces moved to comply, she returned her attention to Goku. I assume you have a plan beyond simply destroying them. Because despite your impressive display earlier, there are far too many for even your abilities to handle simultaneously. Goku studied the approaching force, assessing options with the strategy mind he had developed over countless battles. These aren't just random Void Eaters anymore. They're extensions of the architect's will, which means they're connected to him. A connection that can be traced, Arya concluded, immediately grasping his intent. You want to use them to find their master. Exactly, Goku confirmed with a respectful nod. But I'll need to capture one intact, not destroy it. That will be challenging. A small, fierce smile curved Arya's lips. Challenging is what we do best, Guardian. She unsheathed her twin blades, the weapons igniting with golden energy. Tell me what you need. Before Goku could respond, the fortress shook violently as the first wave of evolved Void Eaters struck the outer defenses. Unlike the previous attack, this one showed unmistakable tactical coordination, simultaneous strikes at structural weaknesses, covering fire from ranged attackers, and focused assaults on defensive strong points. They're fighting like an army, Arya observed with professional concern, already moving toward the most threatened section. An army that doesn't fear death because they don't truly live. Goku followed, gathering his energy for the battle ahead. I need their commander, the large one directing the others. If we can isolate and contain it, I may be able to trace the connection back to the architect. Arya nodded sharply. Eastern Tower provides the best vantage point. My elite guards will create a diversion at the main gate while we approach from above. As they fought their way through increasingly organized Void Eater forces, Goku found himself impressed by Arya's combat abilities. Despite lacking his superhuman powers, she moved with the practiced precision of a lifetime warrior, each strike perfectly timed and placed for maximum effect. Her twin blades carved through corrupted entities with surprising effectiveness, the specialized energy they channeled disrupting the Void Eater's cohesion temporarily. Your weapons, Goku commented between engagements. They're remarkably effective against timeline corruption. How did your people develop them? Necessity and ancient knowledge, Arya replied, dispatching another entity with fluid grace. The Guardian scholars preserved techniques from the First Age, when the barriers between worlds were thinner. She executed a perfect spinning attack that cleared their path momentarily. Legend says our ancestors once walked between realities as easily as we walk between rooms. They reached the Eastern Tower, fighting their way to its summit to gain tactical advantage. From this height, the battlefield spread before them in its entirety, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Despite the defenders' discipline and specialized weapons, the sheer number of evolved Void Eaters was overwhelming their defenses point by point. At the center of the assault, the commanding entity directed its forces with disturbing intelligence, adapting tactics in response to resistance. Its form had consolidated further during the battle, becoming increasingly humanoid, a mockery of life created from the very antithesis of existence. There's our target, Goku indicated. But reaching it won't be easy. It's keeping itself well protected. Arya studied the battlefield with a commander's eye, quickly identifying tactical opportunities. There, she pointed to a section where the defensive line bulged outward. Captain Fennel is leading a counterattack that's disrupting their flank. If he pushes further, it will force their commander to reposition, potentially exposing itself momentarily. Good eye, Goku acknowledged with professional respect. Can you get a message to your captain? Better, Arya replied, removing a small crystalline device from her armor. She spoke into it briefly, issuing precise tactical instructions, then returned it to its place. He'll execute the maneuver on my signal. Goku nodded, gathering the specialized energy required for his part of the plan. Unlike the broad-spectrum attack he had used earlier, this would require precision and control, capturing rather than destroying the target entity. Ready when you are, Commander, he said, golden energy coalescing around his hands. Arya raised her blade, the weapon flaring brightly in response to her will. The light was clearly visible across the battlefield, the signal her forces had been waiting for. Immediately, Captain Fennel's unit surged forward in a perfectly executed wedge formation, driving deep into the Void Eater flank with unexpected force. The effect was exactly as Arya had predicted. The commanding entity, responding to the tactical threat, moved forward to redirect its forces, momentarily breaking from its protective formation. Now, Arya called, already launching herself from the tower toward the exposed target, fearless despite the drop that would have killed an ordinary human. Goku moved instantly, teleporting to intercept the entity while simultaneously eating a chronological containment field. a specialized technique that isolated a subject from normal timeline flow, essentially freezing it in a moment of time. The commanding entity sensed the trap an instant before it closed, lashing out with concentrated void energy that would have annihilated an ordinary opponent. But Goku was far from ordinary. Channeling his power through precise martial techniques, he deflected the attack while completing the containment field's formation. Golden energy encased the entity, isolating it from its army and preventing it from either escaping or being destroyed. The effect on the remaining Void Eaters was immediate. Without their commander's directing intelligence, they reverted to more chaotic attack patterns, losing the tactical advantage they had maintained. Arya landed beside Goku with cat-like grace, immediately assessing the contained entity with professional interest. "It's already trying to adapt to the containment," she observed, noting how the creature's form shifted continuously within the golden energy field. "It won't succeed," Goku assured her, maintaining careful control of the containment. "But we need to move quickly. The architect will know his extension has been captured and will likely attempt to sever the connection." A thunderous explosion from the main gate interrupted their discussion. Arya turned sharply, instantly alert to the new threat to her fortress. "That wasn't Void Eaters," she stated with certainty. "Different energy signature entirely." Before Goku could respond, a familiar voice echoed across the battlefield, not physically present, but projected through some form of timeline manipulation. "Impressive tactical adaptation, Guardian," the architect's voice observed with clinical detachment. "Capturing my proxy rather than destroying it. A move I had not anticipated in this iteration." Goku straightened, scanning for the source of the projection while maintaining the containment field. "Show yourself, architect. Face me directly instead of hiding behind your creations." "All in due time," came the amused response. "But I'm afraid I must cut this particular game short. You've provided valuable data on your combat capabilities and strategic thinking, which was the primary purpose of this engagement." The contained entity suddenly convulsed within its golden prison, its form destabilizing rapidly as if being torn apart from within. Self-destruct sequence, Goku realized, immediately reinforcing the containment field. "Arya, get your people back. If this breaks free during destabilization, chronological backlash could erase half your fortress." The commander didn't waste time with questions, immediately issuing evacuation orders through her communication crystal. As her forces began their disciplined withdrawal, she turned back to Goku. "What about you?" "I need to maintain the containment until it completes its collapse," he explained, power visibly straining against the entity's increasingly violent deterioration. "Go. Protect your people." Arya hesitated only briefly before nodding with professional understanding. "Good luck, Guardian." With that, she departed to oversee her force's evacuation, leaving Goku alone with the destabilizing entity. As the containment field grew brighter with the strain of containing the imminent chronological explosion, the architect's voice returned, now directed solely at Goku. "Your compassion remains your greatest vulnerability, Guardian," it observed dispassionately. "So much power at your disposal, yet you prioritize the safety of insignificant timeline natives whose existence is fundamentally transitory. Every life matters," Goku replied through gritted teeth, channeling more power into the containment as the entity approached critical instability. "Every timeline has value. That's something you clearly don't understand." "I understand efficiency," the architect countered. "The multiverse is bloated with redundancy, count. Less variations that contribute nothing meaningful to cosmic evolution. My chronological order will streamline existence, preserving only what truly matters." "And who are you to make that judgment?" Goku challenged, golden aura flaring as the containment field reached maximum stress. "What gives you the right to decide which realities live or die?" A moment of silence followed, then, "The same authority that made you Guardian." "Son Goku." "Necessity." The voice grew more distant, as if the connection was weakening. "We will continue this discussion soon enough. Your captured assassin awaits your return, assuming you survive containing my little parting gift." With that, the presence vanished, leaving Goku alone with a chronological bomb reaching critical mass. The entity had completely destabilized now, its form dissolving into pure entropic energy that strained against the golden containment with increasing violence. Realizing he could no longer safely maintain the field, Goku made a split-second decision. Drawing on his authority as guardian of all timelines, he opened a controlled dimensional rift, a technique typically used only in the most extreme circumstances. The rift appeared as a tear in reality itself, a window into the void between timelines. With precise control born of years mastering his enhanced abilities, Goku directed the containment field and its destabilizing contents toward the rift, timing the release perfectly to coincide with the field's collapse. The chronological explosion was contained within the dimensional void, the resulting shockwave harmlessly dispersed across infinity rather than devastating timeline Omega 117. The rift sealed itself immediately afterward, leaving only a lingering energy signature that would dissipate naturally over time. Exhausted but satisfied, Goku descended to the fortress courtyard, where Arya was efficiently organizing her forces. She looked up at his approach, visible relief crossing her features before being replaced by professional composure. "Crisis averted?" she inquired simply. "For now," Goku confirmed. "But the architect will return. He's specifically targeting your great nexus, and today's attack was just a test of defenses." Arya nodded grimly. "Then we'll strengthen those defenses. My people have faced extinction before, Guardian. We don't surrender easily." Before their conversation could continue, Sora and Lena emerged from the fortress keep, both bearing expressions of urgent discovery. "Guardian," Sora called, her normally composed features tight with concern. The Guardian scholar's texts contain critical information about this timeline's quantum structure. The Great Nexus isn't merely a connection point between realities, it's one of 7 master nodes that help maintain multiverse stability. If the architect gains control of even one such node, Lena added, her scientific precision underscoring the gravity of the situation, he could potentially redirect timeline energy on a scale we haven't seen before. It would exponentially increase his ability to implement his chronological order, whatever that entails. 7 nodes, Goku repeated thoughtfully. 7 timelines specifically targeted. He turned to Arya. "Your reality isn't the only one facing this threat. The architect is launching coordinated attacks against all 7 master nodes simultaneously." The commander absorbed this information with remarkable composure. "Then we face a multiverse-wide threat. What's your recommendation, Guardian?" Goku considered for a moment, weighing tactical options against cosmic responsibilities. "We need to fortify all 7 nodes, but we can't be everywhere at once. The Celestial Conclave must be informed immediately so they can deploy temporal sentinels to the other 6 locations." "And this node?" Arya prompted. "I'd like to remain here temporarily," Goku decided. "This attack was the most aggressive we've seen, suggesting the architect places special value on your great nexus. Understanding why could be key to countering his overall strategy." Sora stepped forward, formal protocol reasserting itself. "Guardian, the Conclave protocols are explicit regarding extended timeline intervention. We must return to the Nexus to make our report and receive proper authorization for any sustained presence in Omega 117. Before Goku could respond, a subtle tremor ran through the timeline, not physical, but metaphysical, detectable only to those with enhanced chronological awareness. "Something's wrong," he stated, extending his senses beyond the immediate reality. Had he discovered sent a chill through him despite his immense power. "The Chronos Nexus is under attack." "Impossible," Sora breathed, her own celestial senses confirming his assessment. "The Nexus exists outside normal timeline flow. It can't be directly assaulted. Unless," Lena suggested, scientific mind racing ahead to the logical conclusion, "someone found a way to use the master nodes as access points. If all 7 are under simultaneous attack, it could create a feedback loop that destabilizes the Nexus itself," Goku finished grimly. "The assassin, the coordinated Void Eater attacks, they weren't the main objective. They were distractions to draw us away from the Nexus during the critical moment." Sora's expression shifted from disbelief to alarm as the implications became clear. "Guardian, we must return immediately. If the Nexus falls, the entire multiverse could collapse into chaos." Goku nodded. "Decision made. Commander Stormheart, can your forces hold this position without our assistance?" Arya straightened, a warrior's pride evident in her bearing. "We've been fighting void plagues for 3 years, Guardian. We'll endure." Her expression softened marginally. Quote, "But we would welcome your return when circumstances allow." "Count on it," Goku promised. Turning to Sora and Lena, he added, "Prepare for emergency transit. We're returning to the Nexus. As he read the energy required for timeline crossing, a sudden thought occurred to him. Commander Stormheart, he said, turning back to Arya, would you consider accompanying us? Your experience fighting Void Eaters could prove invaluable. And your tactical insight is impressive. Surprise flickered briefly across Arya's features before being replaced by thoughtful consideration. You're asking me to leave my timeline. My people, temporarily, Goku clarified. What we're facing threatens all timelines, including yours. Having a commander with your abilities could make the difference between victory and defeat. Arya glanced at her fortress, at the people who depended on her leadership, then back to Goku. After a moment of internal conflict, she made her decision. Captain Fennel, she called, summoning her second in command. You have command until my return. Maintain defensive protocols and continue fortifying the Great Nexus. The captain saluted sharply, accepting the responsibility without question. Arya turned back to Goku, resolution evident in her stormy eyes. I'll accompany you, Guardian. If this threat is truly multiverse-wide, then my place is where I can make the greatest difference. A tactically sound decision, Sora acknowledged, though her tone suggested reservations about bringing another timeline native into the Nexus. As Goku created the transit field that would return them to the Chronos Nexus, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing directly into the Architect's plans. The coordinated nature of the attacks, the specific targeting of master nodes, the timing of the Nexus assault, all suggested a level of strategic thinking that went beyond mere opportunism. The board is being set, he thought, recalling the Architect's earlier words. But for what game? With that troubling question hanging in his mind, Goku activated the transit field, golden light enveloping the four of them as they prepared to return to a Chronos Nexus under siege, and perhaps to finally confront the mysterious entity threatening all of existence. The light intensified to blinding brilliance, then vanished, taking them with it and leaving timeline Omega 117 to face its continuing battles against the encroaching void. Chapter 3. The Convergence Point. The Chronos Nexus burned, not with ordinary fire, but with the peculiar anti-light of timeline dissolution, real it. Y itself being unmade in the very heart of multiversal stability. As Goku and his companions materialized on the central platform, the devastation confronting them defied comprehension. Crystalline Street. Ruptures that had stood since the dawn of creation hung suspended in mid-shatter, fragments frozen between existence and oblivion. Celestial delegates fled through fractured dimensional doorways while others fought desperately against the encroaching void. Impossible, Sora whispered, her customary composure shattered by the sight of the supposedly impregnable Nexus under successful assault. Not. Hing should be able to breach these defenses. Yet something has, Arya observed with a commander's pragmatism, immediately assessing the tactical situation despite the alien environment. Her hands instinctively sought her twin blades, drawing comfort from their familiar weight. Lena Voltage moved to the nearest functioning console, fingers flying across interfaces she shouldn't have been able to understand yet somehow did. Multiple breach points, she reported, scientific detachment masking her horror. All corresponding to the 7 master nodes we identified. The architect created a resonance cascade, using simultaneous attacks to establish a feedback loop that destabilized the Nexus's chronological shielding. Goku's expression hardened as he scanned the chamber, seeking the epicenter of the attack. Where's the captive assassin? Detention quadrant, eastern sector, Sora replied, already moving in that direction. If this was coordinated as you suspect, her presence here may not have been coincidental. They fought their way through corridors warped by temporal distortion, past scenes of conflict frozen in impossible geometries. Celestial beings battled manifestations of Ku. Re-entropy, Void Eaters more evolved than any they'd encountered before, with forms that approximated the divine entities they fought. They're mimicking their opponents, Arya noted with tactical insight, adapting not just physically but conceptually, taking on aspects of celestial beings to counter their abilities. Which should be impossible, Sora added grimly. Void Eaters are entropy incarnate. They consume order, not adopt it. Unless they're being specifically directed, Lena theorized. Controlled evolution guided by an intelligence with intimate knowledge of celestial physiology. Goku remained silent, focus divided between their immediate path and extending his senses throughout the damaged Nexus. Something felt wrong beyond the obvious assault, a deeper wrongness that tugged at his enhanced awareness like a half-forgotten nightmare. They reached the detention quadrant to find its security measures not merely breached but systematically dismantled from within. The specialized, chronological restraints designed to contain the assassin lay shattered across the floor, their quantum-locked alloys reduced to component atoms. No sign of struggle, Arya observed, examining the scene with professional assessment. This wasn't a rescue, it was a planned extraction. She knew exactly how to disable these systems. Because she helped design them, came a voice from the shadows, melodic, ancient, and utterly calm despite the chaos engulfing the Nexus. All four turned toward the sound, defenses raised. From a pocket of undisturbed space stepped a figure that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, a woman of indeterminate age whose form shifted subtly between different possible manifestations, never quite settling on a single appearance. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, eyes holding the depth of galaxies in their dark irises. She wore simple garments of a design that predated current universal cycles, emblazoned with symbols that hurt the mind to observe directly. Zara Kairos, Sora identified, recognition and wariness mingling in her voice. The last observer. The woman inclined her head slightly, acknowledgement without deference. Celestial strategist. It has been 17 universal cycles since our paths last crossed. Her gaze shifted to Goku, ancient eyes studying him with detached curiosity. And the current guardian, younger than most who have held the title, more attached. You know what's happening here, Goku stated rather than asked, sensing the depths of knowledge behind those ageless eyes. I know many things, Guardian, Zara replied, her voice carrying the weight of eons yet remaining somehow light. I have witnessed the rise and fall of reality itself more times than even your enhanced consciousness could comprehend. This particular iteration was inevitable. You've been expecting this attack, Lena deduced, scientific mind quickly processing implications. Why didn't you warn anyone? A ghost of Someth, ing that might have been amusement crossed Zara's timeless features. Warnings require belief in intervention, drive, voltage. I abandoned such beliefs long ago. I merely observe. People are dying while you observe, Arya countered sharply. Commander's practicality cutting through philosophical detachment. Entire timelines being erased from existence. As they have before, as they will again. Zara's expression remained unchanged, yet somehow conveyed both infinite compassion and complete detachment. All things end, Commander Stormheart. Even timelines. Even reality itself. Goku stepped forward, golden energy flickering around his form as the Nexus continued to deteriorate around them. I need answers, not philosophy. Who is the architect? What is the chronological order he's trying to establish? And why attack the Nexus now? Quote, Zara studied him with renewed interest, as if his direct questions represented a novel approach. After a moment's consideration, she gestured toward a section of the chamber that remained relatively undisturbed by the temporal chaos. Walk with me, Guardian. The answers you seek are complicated. As they moved away from the others, Zara waved a hand casually, creating a bubble of stabilized time that would protect Sora, Arya, and Lena temporarily. Your companions will be safe for the moment, she assured Goku. What I must show you is for the Guardian's perspective alone, initially. The space around them shifted as they walked, corridors stretching and compressing in ways that defied normal geometry. Goku realized they weren't merely moving through the physical nexus, but through its temporal layers as well, seeing its past, present, and possible futures simultaneously. You are not the first Guardian, Zara began, her voice echoing strangely in the fluctuating space. Nor will you be the last. The title has existed since the multiverse required protection, since conscious beings first discovered how to travel between realities and Eden the delicate balance of creation. Images flickered around them, previous guardians from species Goku had never encountered, wielding powers similar to his own yet distinct in their applications. Some appeared as energy beings, others as creatures of unimaginable form, and a few, surprisingly, as humans or near humans. The position has always been problematic, Zara continued. A single consciousness, no matter how enhanced, tasked with maintaining infinite possibilities. It inevitably leads to perspective issues. You're saying guardians go mad, Goku translated bluntly. A slight smile curved Zara's ageless lips. Not mad, precisely. Let us say they develop unique interpretations of their mandate. Some become overprotective, preventing any change that might threaten timeline stability. Others grow distant, intervening only in the most catastrophic circumstances. And some. She paused as they reached a section of the Nexus Goku had never seen before, an ancient chamber. Predating the crystalline architecture of the current structure. At its center stood a pedestal bearing a simple stone tablet inscribed with symbols in no language Goku recognized. And some decide the entire system needs restructuring. She finished quietly. Understanding dawned with cold clarity. The architect was a guardian. As a guardian, Zara corrected. From a previous universal cycle. Oh, nay, who completed his appointed term and should have relinquished his authority, but instead found a way to conserve it. How? Goku demanded, the implications staggering even to his enhanced comprehension. The powers of the guardian are granted by the collective divine authority. They can't be simply kept. Unless one discovers the fundamental truth of the position, Zara replied, gesturing toward the ancient tablet. That the guardian's authority doesn't come from the gods at all. It comes from the multiverse itself, from the fundamental consciousness underlying all reality. Goku stared at the tablet, his enhanced perception allowing him to somehow comprehend the untranslatable symbols. What they revealed shook him to his core. The convergence point, he whispered, the concept simultaneously familiar and alien. All timelines, all possibilities, they all eventually lead to a single moment. A final reality. Yes, Zara confirmed. What religions call Judgment Day, what scientists term entropy's victory, what philosophers name the ultimate truth, all describe the same inevitability. All timelines, no matter their divergence, eventually converge. The multiverse itself has a destiny. And the architect discovered this. More than discovered it, he reached it. Zara's voice carried something approaching emotion for the first time, a distant echo of awe tinged with fear. During his guardianship of a previous cycle, he traced all timeline projections to their ultimate conclusion and physically traveled to the convergence point. What he witnessed there changed him. Before Goku could question further, the Nexus shuddered violently around them, reality fracturing in new and alarming patterns. Zara frowned slightly, the expression subtle yet significant on her normally impassive features. We must return to your companions, she stated. The architect's plan enters its final phase, and my temporal bubble will not sustain them much longer. As they hurried back through distorting corridors, Goku processed the revelations with the enhanced cognitive abilities his position granted him. If the architect was a guardian who reached the convergence point, why wait until now to implement his plan? Why not reshape reality immediately upon his return? Because even with a guardian's power, restructuring the multiverse requires extraordinary energy, Zara explained. He needed to harvest sufficient timeline essence to fuel his vision, and he needed to wait for specific chronological alignments that would maximize his efficiency. The 7 master nodes, Goku realized. They're not just structural supports for the multiverse, they're power conduits. Indeed, and today marks the septennial alignment, the one moment in 7 universal years when all nodes channel maximum energy simultaneously. Zara's expression grew grave. The architect has been planning this for longer than your civilization has existed, Guardian. Every attack, every timeline corruption, every strategic move has led to this precise moment. They reached the detention chamber to find Sora, Arya, and Lena engaged in desperate combat against a new wave of evolved Void Eaters. Celestial strategist wielded complex metaphysical techniques that unraveled the entity's temporal cohesion, while Arya's twin blades carved through those that got past Sora's defenses. Meanwhile, Ina had repurposed detention equipment into an improvised chronological disruptor that kept the larger manifestations at bay. Goku moved instantly to assist, golden energy flaring as he dispatched multiple attackers with precision that belied the power behind each strike. Within moments, the immediate threat was neutralized, allowing them a brief respite. The entire Nexus is overrun, Sora reported, composure strained but intact. The Conclave has initiated emergency protocols, but containment is failing. Several delegates have already been unmade. It's worse than that, Goku informed them grimly. The architect isn't just attacking the Nexus, he's using it. The corruption, the Void Eaters, even the Assassin, all diversions to prevent us from recognizing his true goal until too late. Which is? Arya prompted, Commander's directness cutting to the heart of the matter. He's attempting to reach the convergence point, Zara answered, drawing startled looks from those who hadn't yet registered her presence. And reshape it according to his vision of proper cosmic order. The convergence point. Lena's scientific curiosity immediately engaged despite the dire circumstances. You mean a unified timeline terminus? A theoretical final state of all possible realities. Not theoretical, Zara corrected calmly. Inevitable. All timelines, regardless of variation, eventually converge to a single point of unified reality. The ultimate destiny of the multiverse itself. And if someone could reach this point and alter it. Lena's eyes widened as implications cascaded through her formidable intellect. They could retroactively reshape all of reality according to their preference. Which is precisely what the architect intends, Goku confirmed. He believes the current multi-verse structure is inefficient. Too many redundant timelines, too many evolutionary dead ends as he called them. His chronological order would streamline existence, preserving only what he deems worthy. Cosmic genocide, Arya stated flatly, soldiers' practicality cutting through metaphysical complexity. He's planning to erase trillions of lives across countless realities because they don't fit his vision of efficiency. While philosophically troubling, the more immediate concern is methodology, Sora interjected, strategic mind focusing on practical aspects. How does he intend to reach the convergence point? Even with a Guardian's authority, traversing to the end of all timelines should be impossible from our current position in the chronological stream. Zara's ageless eyes turned the chronograph, the massive multidimensional display at the Nexus Center, now flickering with temporal distortion. He doesn't need to traverse conventionally. Not if he controls all 7 master nodes simultaneously. Understanding dawned on Goku's face. The nodes aren't just power conduits, they're navigation points. Properly aligned, they create a direct path to the convergence. A path he is currently forging, Zara confirmed. Gesturing toward the chronograph. Observe. The display, despite its damaged state, showed the 7 master nodes pulsing with increasing synchronization. Lines of chronological force connected them, forming a complex geometric pattern that bent inward toward a central point that somehow existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. He's creating a temporal gateway, Lena breathed. Scientific awe momentarily overriding alarm. Using the nodes as anchors to stabilize a direct route through the chronological stream to its terminus. Can we stop it? Arya asked. Practical as always. Not conventionally, Zara replied. The process has progressed too far. Attempting to disrupt it now would likely accelerate multiverse collapse rather than prevent it. Then we follow him, Goku decided. Resolution hardening his features. We use his pathway to reach the convergence point ourselves and confront him directly. A confrontation at the literal end of time? Sora questioned, violet eyes wide with alarm. Guardian, such a conflict could damage the fundamental structure of reality itself. Reality is already damaged, Goku countered firmly. And will be irreparably rewritten if the architect succeeds. We don't have the luxury of caution. Zara studied him with renewed interest, ancient eyes seeing layers of possibilities surrounding the Guardian's form. You would risk everything on direct confrontation. How very Saiyan of you. Do you have a better suggestion? He challenged. To everyone's surprise, the timeless observer smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her ageless features into something almost youthful. As it happens, I do. The architect believes himself the only entity to have reached the convergence point. He is mistaken. All eyes turned to her with dawning comprehension. You've been there, Lena realized first, scientific mind making the logical connection. That's why you're called the last observer. You've witnessed the end of everything. Many times, Zara confirmed with casual enormity. I have watched the multiverse conclude and renew itself through countless cycles. The convergence point is familiar territory. Then you can help us reach it more efficiently than following the architect's path, Goku surmised, hope kindling despite the direness of their situation. I can do better than that, Zara replied. I can show you aspects of the convergence the architect has never seen, possibilities he has overlooked in his obsession with efficiency. Before further discussion could occur, the Nexus shuddered violently. entire sections dissolving into chronological foam as the corruption accelerated. The chronograph's display flared blindingly as the 7 nodes achieved perfect alignment. "He's opening the gateway," Sora warned, reading the multidimensional data with celestial precision. Timeline convergence initiating in 3 chronological units. "No time for detailed planning," Arya stated. Commander's decisiveness rising to the fore. "We move now or lose everything." Goku nodded sharply. "Everyone stay close." Golden energy flared around him, expanding to encompass his companions. "Zara, if you're coming with us, now's the time." The ancient observer stepped into the protective field with casual grace. After infinite cycles of merely watching, participation represents a novel experience. Her ageless eyes met Goku's with something approaching anticipation. "Lead on, Guardian, to the end of everything." As reality disintegrated around them, Goku focused his consciousness on the temporal gateway forming at the Nexus Center, the impossible pathway to creation's final moment. Drawing on his full authority as guardian of all timelines, he synchronized his energy signature with the converging nodes, creating a protected bubble that would allow them to navigate the treacherous currents toward the ultimate destination. With a final surge of power that momentarily outshone the collapsing Nexus itself, they vanished, not merely from that location, but from that point in the universal timeline altogether. Their journey had transcended mere spatial movement, launching them toward the one destination all existence ultimately shared, the convergence point, the final reality at the end of time itself. They fell through eternity, not downward in any conventional sense, but through layers of increasingly fundamental reality, each transition stripping away aspects of existence itself. The experience transcended normal perception, challenging even Goku's enhanced consciousness to maintain cohesion. Within their protective bubble, each experienced the journey differently. Sora perceived it as a succession of mathematical equations simplifying toward an elegant ultimate formula. Lena saw cascading scientific principles merging toward unified theory. Arya felt it as battle strategies distilling to perfect tactical truth. Zara, seemingly comfortable in the extra-dimensional transit, merely observed with the calm interest of a seasoned traveler revisiting familiar territory. For Goku, the journey manifested as martial forms, every technique he had ever learned or witnessed across multiple lifetimes, gradually refining toward a single perfect movement that contained all combat truth. "We approach the outer boundaries," Zara announced, her voice somehow normal despite their impossible surroundings. "Prepare yourselves. The transitional shock can be disorienting." Before anyone could question this understated warning, reality shattered around them, or perhaps they shattered against reality. The protective bubble dispersed, not destroyed but rather absorbed into a greater wholeness that encompassed everything. For one eternal moment, each of them experienced total cosmic awareness, complete understanding of all creation simultaneously. Then, mercifully, perception narrowed again as they materialized on what appeared to be solid ground. "Welcome," Zara said simply, "to where everything ends." They stood upon a vast crystalline plain extending in all directions toward horizons that somehow curved both inward and outward simultaneously. Above them TCHED not sky but the visible fabric of reality itself, trillions of timeline threads converging from infinite starting points toward a single nexus of blinding brilliance suspended at what might be termed the center of everything. The convergence, Goku whispered, momentarily overwhelming even his cosmic perspective. Around them, fragments of countless realities manifested and dissolved in seemingly random patterns, buildings from civilizations that had flourished across multiple timelines, natural formations from worlds long extinct, occasional glimpses of beings both familiar and utterly alien. Nothing remained stable for long, each manifestation merely a temporary echo of existence approaching its conclusion. "Reality fragments," Zara explained, observing their reactions with mild interest. "Echoes of what was, reflected through the lens of what must ultimately be. The closer timelines approach convergence, the more they bleed together." "It's beautiful," Lena breathed, scientific. "I see detachment momentarily overcome by the majesty before them. Every possible permutation of reality distilling toward unified truth." "Beautiful and terrible," Arya added, her warrior's instinct recognizing the inherent finality of their surroundings. "Everything that ever was or will be, ending in a single point." Sora moved closer to the edge of their crystalline platform, violet eyes tracking the countless timeline threads with celestial precision. The convergence is accelerating, she observed. Timeline coalescence increasing exponentially. Something is forcing the process. The architect, Goku confirmed, extending his senses toward the brilliant nexus point where all threads ultimately terminated. He's already here, at the final confluence. Using the 7 master nodes, he's awing all timelines toward conclusion more rapidly than their natural progression. Because he requires all timeline energy to complete his reformation, Zara elaborated. The convergence represents, not merely an ending but a beginning, the seed from which the next universal cycle will grow. By controlling the convergence process, he controls the fundamental parameters of the reality that follows. Then we need to reach the confluence point before the process completes, Goku decided, already seeking a path across the crystalline expanse toward the distant nexus. Direct approach will prove difficult, Zara cautioned. The architect will have established defensive measures throughout the convergence zone. As if summoned by her warning, the reality fragments surrounding their position began to coalesce, forming into more stable manifestations, familiar figures that Goku recognized with shock. Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu, he identified incredulously as his greatest opponents from across multiple timelines took shape before them, each accompanied by variations he had never encountered personally. How is this possible? Timeline echoes given form through concentrated will, Zara explained. Unperturbed by the gathering threat. The architect draws from your own memories, Guardian, creating defensive constructs from opponents you have faced across multiple realities. He's using my own history against me, Goku realized. Dropping instinctively into a defensive stance as more figures materialized, Jiren, Beerus, even corrupted versions of his friends and allies from countless possible timelines. Not just yours, Sora warned as celestial entities began to form. Variations of the Grand Priest, shadowy approximations of Zeno, even distorted reflections of the gods of destruction from across all 12 universes. An army drawn from all possible histories, Arya assessed with tactical precision, unsheathing her twin blades which flared with golden energy in response to the convergence zone's unique properties. Designed to slow our advance toward the nexus point. Then we advance regardless, Goku decided, golden energy cascading around his form as he tapped into the NCED Ultra instinct that had evolved since his ascension to guardianship. Stay together. Focus on forward progress rather than total victory. We don't need to defeat these echoes, just reach the confluence. As the first wave of constructs surged forward, their group moved with unified purpose. Goku at point position, golden energy carving a path through the densest concentration, Arya flanking with tactical precision. Her twin blades disrupting formation patterns before they could solidify, Sora providing metaphysical countermeasures that prevented the more conceptual entities from fully materializing. Lena analyzing pattern weaknesses and calling guidance to optimize their advance, and Zara simply walked, untouched by the chaos surrounding them. Reality fragments parted before her like water around stone. Construct attackers dissolving back into possibility the moment they approached her ageless form. How are you doing that? Lena called to her during a momentary respite, scientific curiosity overcoming immediate tactical concerns. I exist simultaneously across all timeline permutations, Zara replied with simple directness. These constructs cannot affect what they cannot definitively locate. Their progress continued across the crystalline expanse, fighting through increasingly organized resistance. The construct army evolved as they advanced, combining attributes from different opponents to create hybrid threats specifically designed to counter their particular abilities. He's adapting his defenses, Goku observed between engagements, noting how each new wave specifically targeted previously successful strategies. Learning from each encounter. Classic tactical evolution, Arya confirmed, executing a perfect spinning defense that dispatched 3 constructs simultaneously. But adaptation requires observation. He's watching us specifically, not merely deploying automated defenses. Which means his attention is divided between us and completing the convergence process, Sora deduced. Violet eyes narrowing thoughtfully, a potential vulnerability we might exploit. Before they could develop this strategic opening, the crystalline surface beneath them shuddered violently. Massive fissures spread outward from the central convergence point as the timeline acceleration intensified. Reality fragments around them began merging more rapidly, creating chaotic dimensional overlaps that threatened to trap them in paradoxical space-time configurations. The final phase initiates, Zara announced with unusual urgency. The architect moves to collapse all remaining timelines simultaneously. We must reach the confluence now or lose all opportunity for intervention. Goku's expression hardened with determination. Then we stop fighting our way through his defenses and take a more direct approach. Golden energy flared around him with unprecedented intensity as he tapped into the deepest wellspring of his guardian authority. Everyone stay close. As his companions gathered around him, Goku implemented a technique he had developed but never before attempted, a multidimensional transit that moved not through space or conventional time, but through conceptual reality itself. Rather than traveling to the confluence point, he temporarily aligned their existential signature with it, creating a quantum entanglement that would draw them inexorably toward the center. The sensation transcended normal teleportation, feeling more like reality itself reconfiguring around them while they remained stationary. The construct army and crystalline expand. Say blurred into incomprehensible patterns as existence folded inward, depositing them directly at the heart of the convergence, the ultimate nexus point where all timelines terminated. What they found there defied conventional description. A vast multidimensional structure occupied the confluence center, neither building nor machine but something that incorporated aspects of both while transcending either categorization. It pulsed with energies drawn directly from the converging timelines, processing the fundamental essence of reality itself through incomprehensibly complex configurations. And at its center stood the architect, no longer appearing as the vague humanoid entity they had encountered previously, but now revealed in his true form, a being of pure chronological energy, his Aperon. Shifting continuously through different possible manifestations while maintaining a core identity that radiated both immense power and absolute conviction. Surrounding him were four figures that Goku recognized with shock: the missing assassin from the Nexus, accompanied by three other individuals who shared her distinctive combat harness and timeline negation technology. All four maintained precise positions around a central apparatus, channeling energy directly into the convergence process. The timeline hunters, Sora identified, her celestial knowledge providing context. Not merely assassins, but specialized chronological engineers, they're stabilizing the convergence acceleration. Welcome, Guardian, the architect's voice resonated not through conventional sound but directly into their consciousness. Your arrival at this precise moment was calculated within acceptable parameters. Though I confess, your method of bypassing my defensive constructs suggests evolution beyond my initial projections. Goku stepped forward, golden energy surrounding his form as he confronted the entity directly. Stand down, architect. Whatever you believe you're accomplishing here, the cost is too high. Trillions of lives across countless timelines are merely temporary permutations of possibility, the architect interrupted dismissively. Evolutionary experiments in consciousness that ultimately contribute nothing to cosmic advancement. My chronological order merely expedites natural selection on a multiversal scale. By appointing yourself the arbiter of which possibilities deserve continuation, Goku countered. That was never the Guardian's mandate. The Guardian's mandate, the architect replied with something approaching amusement, was written by beings who themselves are present merely one possible permutation of cosmic consciousness. I have transcended such limited perspective. His form shifted, briefly approximating something more humanoid as he gestured toward multidimensional structure surrounding them. Observe the inefficiency, Guardian. Countless nearly identical timelines differing only in the most insignificant details, whether a particular being had breakfast or not. Chose one made over another, turned left instead of right. Cosmic energy wasted on maintaining redundancy. Those insignificant details are people's lives, Arya interjected sharply. Commander's directness cutting through metaphysical abstraction. Their choices, their experiences, their existence. A limited perspective from a limited being, the architect dismissed. You see, no comprehend the scale of cosmic inefficiency from your position within it. Perhaps not, Lena acknowledged, scientific mind engaging directly with the architect's premise. But efficiency alone is a flawed metric for evaluating conscious experience. Diversity of outcome represents not waste but richness, the full exploration of possibility that drives actual evolution rather than mere streamlining. The architect's form pulsed with what might have been irritation. Philosophical objections are irrelevant at this juncture. The convergence process has advanced beyond reversibility. All Tim. Aliens now collapse toward unified reality according to my established parameters. Indeed, around them the convergence had visibly accelerated, timeline threads merging more rapidly as they approached the central nexus. The very fabric of reality trembled with imminent transformation. Guardian, Sora urged quietly, if intervention is possible, it must occur immediately. Timeline coalescence approaches critical threshold. Goku nodded, gathering his power for direct confrontation, only to be halted by Zara's calm voice cutting through the escalating tension. You misunderstood what you witnessed here, she stated simply, addressing the architect with the casual familiarity of one ancient being to another. When you first reached the convergence point, you saw only partial truth. The architect's form stabilized momentarily, attention shifting to the ageless observer. The last observer, he acknowledged with evident surprise. You abandoned intervention countless cycles ago. Your presence here is unexpected. As is your fundamental error, she replied evenly. You witnessed convergence but failed to comprehend its purpose. You saw timelines merging toward unified reality and a sum simplification was the objective, that the multiverse seeks efficiency through reduction. She moved forward with unhurried confidence, reality fragments parting around her as she approached the architect directly. The convergence exists not to eliminate diversity but to harvest its fruits, to gather the unique evolutionary advancements from all possible permutations before seeding the next universal cycle. Streamlining that process doesn't enhance evolution, it cripples it. For the first time, uncertainty flickered through the architect's form. You cannot know this. No entity has witnessed the complete convergence process and the subsequent universal renewal. None except me, Zara corrected calmly. While you return to implement your corrections, I remain to observe the complete cycle, the full convergence and the reality that followed. What emerges from true convergence is not streamlined efficiency but exponentially expanded possibility, the next evolution of multiverse. Complexity built upon the complete diversity of what came before. The architect's form fluctuated rapidly as he processed this challenge to his fundamental assumptions. If what you claim is true, your entire premise is invalidated. Goku finished, understanding dawning as he grasped the full implications of Zara's revelation. You're not enhancing evolution, you're preventing it. Not creating order from chaos, but imposing stagnation on natural growth. Before the architect could respond, the timeline hunters surrounding the central apparatus moved with synchronized precision, adjusting their positions to compensate for the metaphysical disturbance caused by this conceptual challenge. The convergence parameters are locked, architect, the assassin they had captured earlier announced. Her melodic voice carrying professional detachment. Temporal collapse proceeds according to established protocols regardless of philosophical debate. Miko, Goku identified, finally placing where he had encountered her soul resonance across other timelines. That's your name, isn't it? Miko Shadowblade. The assassin's composure faltered momentarily, dark eyes widening in genuine surprise. How could you possibly know that? I abandoned that designation when I joined the chronological order. Because your soul resonance exists across countless timelines, Goku explained, his enhanced perk. Eption allowing him to see beyond her current manifestation to the essential being beneath. In many of them, you fight for freedom, for justice, against immortal tyrants who enslave humanity. That re-identity persists regardless of circumstantial variation. Meaningless sentimentality, the architect dismissed, though his form continued to fluctuate with increasing instability. The convergence process cannot be halted through emotional appeals. Not through emotion, Sora agreed, stepping forward with celestial authority radiating from her form. But perhaps through direct intervention in the convergence parameters themselves. Quote, her violet eyes locked with Goku's, unspoken strategy passing between them. Understanding immediately, he nodded and turned to Arya, Lena, and Zara. The timeline hunters maintain the convergence configuration, he explained quickly. 4 cardinal positions creating a chronological stabilization field. If we disrupt their formation, we can potentially Alter the convergence parameters before lock-in completes, Lena finished, scientific mind immediately grasping the tactical approach. But they're using timeline negation technology. Conventional energy attacks would be ineffective. Then we don't use conventional attacks, Arya decided, Commander's decisiveness rising to the occasion. We use ourselves, our unique abilities combined for simultaneous intervention. Zara observed this exchange with growing interest, ancient eyes reflecting something approaching actual emotion. 5 cardinal positions would create a more powerful configuration than 4, she noted. A balanced pentagram rather than an unbalanced square. Precisely, Goku confirmed. Each of us approaches reality from a fundamentally different perspective: guardian, strategist, commander, scientist, observer. Together, we create a more complete paradigm than the architect's singular vision. Without further discussion, they moved with coordinated purpose, each targeting G1 of the timeline hunters while Goku confronted the architect directly. The chronological engineers responded immediately, abandoning their stabilization positions to engage the approaching threats. What followed transcended conventional combat. At the literal end of time, with reality itself hanging in the balance, the confrontation manifested through multiple layers of existence simultaneously. Sora faced the hunter-designated chronological engineer Alpha, their battle unfolding through complex metaphysical equations, attack and defense expressed as competing probability functions that rewrote local reality with each exchange. The celestial strategist's comprehensive understanding of cosmic structure allowed her to gradually identify weaknesses in her opponent's mathematical approach, introducing subtle errors that compounded with each iteration. Arya confronted Engineer Beta with more direct martial engagement, her twin blades channeling the unique energy of the convergence zone to counter timeline negation technology. What she lacked in metaphysical comprehension she compensated for with tactical brilliance, analyzing her opponent's fighting style for patterns and exploiting the millisecond vulnerabilities between technique transitions. Lena, initially the most physically vulnerable against Engineer Gamma, turned scientific knowledge into unexpected advantage. Recognizing the fundamental principles underlying timeline negation, she systematically reverse-engineered its mechanisms during their confrontation, gradually developing countermeasures that turned her opponent's technology against itself through elegant application of chronological conservation laws. Zara's encounter with Engineer Delta, Miko Shadowblade herself, unfolded differently from the others. Rather than direct opposition, the ancient observer simply allowed the assassin's attacks to pass through her multidimensional existence, each failed strike bringing Miko into closer contact with Zara's perspective, glimpses of infinite possibility that gradually eroded the assassin's conviction in the architect's vision. At the center of it all, Goku confronted the architect directly, guardian against former guardian. Fundamentally different interpretations of the same cosmic mandate clashing with reality-altering consequences. Golden energy met chronological manipulation as they fought across multiple planes of existence simultaneously. Their conflict representing not merely opposed individuals but competing philosophies of cosmic purpose. You cannot prevent what must be, the architect insisted. As they clashed at the heart of convergence. Reality requires direction, structure, efficiency. Reality requires freedom, Goku countered, his martial techniques expressing philosophical truth through physical form. The choice to evolve naturally, not according to predetermined parameters. Their battle intensified, power levels escalating beyond what any single timeline could possibly contain. The convergence zone trembled around them, timeline threads fluctuating between accelerated merger and natural progression as control of the process shifted between opposing forces. Gradually, the tide began to turn. Sora's metaphysical countermeasures unraveled Engineer Alpha's probability manipulations, creating cascading errors that eventually collapsed his operational paradigm entirely. Ia's tactical precision found the critical vulnerability in Beta's defense pattern, a perfectly timed strike temporarily disabling his timeline negation harness. Lena's scientific innovation success FULLY reversed Gamma's chronological technology, converting it from convergence acceleration to stabilization. But it was Zara's interaction with Miko Shadowblade that proved most consequential. Rather than defeating her opponent, the ancient observer systematically exposed her to alternative perspectives, showing her glimpses of her own soul resonance across countless timelines, the lives she had lived, the causes she had championed. The freedom she had fought for against cosmic tyranny. You were never meant to be a tool of imposed order, Zara told her as understanding dawned in the assassin's dark eyes. Across the multiverse, your essential nature fights against dictated destiny, not enforces it. This fundamental revelation spread from Miko to her fellow engineers through their linked chronological network, creating rippling uncertainty that disrupted the architect's control of the convergence process. One by one, the timeline hunters faltered, their absolute conviction in the a logical order weakening as alternative possibilities filtered through their consciousness. The architect sensed this shifting dynamic, his form fluctuating with increasing instability as control slipped away. "What are you doing to my engineers?" he demanded, momentarily distracted from his confrontation with Goku. "Showing them truth," the Guardian replied simply. "Not my truth or your truth, all truth. The complete spectrum of possibility that you tried to narrow to a single path." Taking advantage of this momentary distraction, Goku implemented the strategy they had developed, directing his companions to assume the 5 cardinal positions around the central convergence apparatus, creating a balanced pentagonal configuration that could potentially override the architect's programmed parameters. "Stop," the architect commanded, genuine alarm evident as he realized their intent. "You cannot comprehend the consequences of interfering with established convergence protocols. The entire process could collapse into chaos." "Not chaos," Zara corrected calmly as she took her position. "Natural evolution, the true purpose of convergence." As the 5 of them synchronized their unique energies, Guardian authority, celestial strategy, tactical precision, scientific insight, and timeless observation, the convergence apparatus responded, timeline threads reorienting toward a new configuration that neither accelerated toward the architect's streamlined vision nor reverted completely to original parameters. Instead, something new emerged, a convergence pattern that incorporated elements of structure while preserving diversity. Efficiency without sacrificing possibility, order that enabled freedom rather than restricting it. The architect's form destabilized further as his vision unraveled, the carefully calculated parameters of his chronological order giving way to something more organic, more complete. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice fluctuating between rage and confusion. "Centuries of preparation, perfect calculation, optimal efficiency." "Life isn't about efficiency," Goku replied simply. "It's about experience, growth, possibility, the freedom to choose paths even they aren't perfect or streamlined or optimal. That's what you forgot when you reached the convergence point. You saw the end of everything and thought it needed your correction, when what it really needed was your protection." As the modified convergence process stabilized, the timeline hunters abandoned their opposition entirely, Miko Shadowblade being the first to step away from the apparat. And regard her former master with new understanding. "He's right," she said, her melodic voice carrying conviction born from revealed truth rather than imposed certainty. "I've seen it now, across countless timelines. My soul fought against exactly what we've been implementing. Not chaos, but imposed order. Not freedom, but dictated destiny." The other engineers nodded in agreement, timeline neg. Asian technology powering down as they consciously relinquished their role in the architect's vision. This final abandonment seemed to affect the former Guardian more profoundly than any physical attack, his form fluctuating with something approaching genuine emotion. "You would undo centuries of preparation," he said, addressing Goku directly. "Return the multiverse to wasteful redundancy, pointless variation, meaningless divergence." "No," Goku corrected gently. "We're ensuring the multiverse continues to evolve naturally, with all the beautiful imperfection that entails. Your perfect system would have created stagnation, not advancement. True evolution requires diversity, even the parts that seem inefficient or unnecessary from a limited perspective." The architect's form continued to destabilize, coherence fading as his singular vision collapsed beneath the weight of revealed alternatives. For a moment, the entity that had once been a guardian seemed to consider resistance, gathering the remnants of his considerable power for one final confrontation. Then, unexpectedly, Zara approached him directly, ancient eyes meeting his fluctuating form with something approaching compassion. "You never stayed to witness what follows convergence," she said quietly. "The beauty of what emerges from completed diversity. Stay this time, see what your correction would have prevented." Someth ing shifted in the architect's essence, a subtle realignment that suggested not surrender but reconsideration. His form stabilized partially, coalescing into a more defined manifestation that retained elements of his original appearance while incorporating aspects of newfound understanding. I sought perfection, he acknowledged, voice carrying complex harmonics of regret and conviction simultaneously. The elimination of cosmic waste. The optimization of universal potential. Perfection isn't found in elimination but in harmony, Goku replied. Not in removing diversity but in finding how diverse elements create something greater together than any could alone. Around them, the convergence process continued, not according to the architect's accelerated timeline nor reverted to its original progression, but following a new pattern that incorporated aspects of both while transcending either. Timeline threads merged with natural harmony, each contributing its unique evolutionary advancements to the emergent whole. The next cycle begins soon, Zara observed, her ageless eyes tracking patterns invisible to most others. The seed of new reality forms from the complete diversity of what came before. This is what you never witnessed, architect, the true purpose of convergence. At the center of the confluence, a point of light began to form, not the harsh brilliance of the architect's vision, but a softer, more complex illumination that somehow contained all possible colors simultaneously. It pulsed with living rhythm, expanding and contracting like cosmic respiration as it gathered essence from converging timelines. The Genesis point, Sora identified with celestial knowledge. The foundation of the next universal cycle. Building on everything that came before, Lena added, scientific wonder evident in her voice. Not eliminating inefficiency, but incorporating all variation into greater complexity. As they observed this cosmic birth, the architect's form continued its transformation, gradually shifting from rigid geometric patterns toward more organic configuration. I misunderstood, he acknowledged, the admission clearly difficult despite its simplicity. Saw part and mistook it for whole. Convergence is not streamlining but synthesis. A perspective easily adopted when observing from outside rather than experiencing from within, Zara noted with the wisdom of countless cycles. Even guardians are not immune to the limitations of individual viewpoint. The Genesis point expanded further, reality fragments around them beginning to reorganize according to new patterns established by the modified convergence process. The timeline hunters gathered near Miko, uncertainty evident in their posture as they confronted existence without the architect's absolute direction. What happens to us? Miko asked, addressing the question to no one in particular. We've existed outside normal timeline flow for so long, served a purpose now invalidated. You choose, Goku answered simply. That's the point of everything we've fought for, the freedom to determine your own path rather than follow predetermined parameters. The assassin considered this, dark eyes reflecting complex emotions as she processed the concept of self-determination after centuries of directed purpose. Choice without guidance, freedom without structure. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Inefficient, imperfect, interesting. As the convergence process approached completion, the crystalline expanse began dissolving around them, reality fragments accelerating their merger with the expanding Genesis point. The architect observed this transformation with new perspective, his form continuing to evolve towards something less rigidly defined. The Nexus, Sora suddenly recalled, violet eyes widening with concern. The Chronos Nexus was collapsing when we departed. If the convergence completes without proper stabilization protocols, the Nexus will reform, Zara assured her calmly. It exists partially outside conventional timeline progression, anchored to fundamental cosmic principles rather than specific reality configurations. As the new cycle establishes, it will reconstruct according to natural parameters. And the 7 master nodes? Lena questioned. The timelines they anchored will find new equilibrium based on the modified convergence pattern, the ancient observer explained. Not forced into artificial efficiency, but not abandoned to chaos either. Balance between structure and freedom. The Genesis point had grown to encompass nearly their entire field of perception now. Timeline threads completing their convergence as reality prepared for renewal. At this critical juncture, the architect approached Goku directly, his form now stabilized into Som. Ething that retained aspects of his original identity while incorporating elements of his evolved understanding. The Guardian's mandate continues, he stated, neither question nor command but simple acknowledgement. The protection of all timelines, not their direction. Yes, Goku confirmed. Preservation of possibility, not determination of outcome. The former guardian considered this complex. Emotions flowing through his transformed essence. I relinquish my claim to the title, he finally declared, and to the implementation of chronological order as originally conceived. This formal abdication sent ripples through the converging reality, timeline threads briefly shimmering with renewed vibrancy as the multiverse itself seemed to acknowledge the restoration of proper cosmic authority. What will you do? Goku asked, genuine curiosity rather than suspicion motivating the question. Observe, the architect replied after brief consideration. Learn what I failed to understand. Perhaps, eventually, serve a different role in maintaining multiversal health, one that preserves diversity rather than eliminating it. Before Goku could respond, the Genesis point reached critical expansion, reality around them dissolving completely as convergence achieved completion. The sensation transcended physical experience, consciousness itself seeming to both expand infinitely and contract to singular focus simultaneously. Transition imminent, Zara announced with the calm certainty of one who had witnessed this process countless times before. Maintain coherent identity signature to ensure continuity through cycle renewal. As reality completed its transformation from convergence to genesis, each experienced the transition uniquely according to their fundamental nature. Sora perceived it as mathematical perfection, equations of cosmic significance resolving with elegant simplicity before expanding into new complexity. Lena experienced it as scientific revelation, fundamental principle, clarifying into unified theory before diversifying into novel applications. Arya felt it as tactical transcendence, perfect strategy distilling to essential truth before developing into innovative approaches. Zara, having witnessed this process through countless cycles, simply embraced the familiar transition with the quiet appreciation of one greeting an old friend after long separation. For Goku, the experience manifested as martial enlightenment. Every technique, every form, every fighting philosophy he had ever encountered across multiple lifetimes condensing into singular perfect standing before blossoming into entirely new possibilities he had never imagined. When awareness returned, they stood within a reconstructed Chronos nexus, similar to its previous manifestation yet subtly transformed. Crystalline structures retained their fundamental architecture but incorporated more organic elements, mathematical precision balanced with natural fluidity. The chronograph at its CENTER displayed not merely timeline progressions but their interconnections, emphasizing relationships rather than mere categorization. The nexus reforms according to new parameters, Sora observed, let eyes tracking the modifications with celestial precision. Structure maintained but with increased flexibility. Balance between order and diversity, Lena noted, scientific analysis confirming improved functionality. More efficient without sacrificing complexity. Arya moved to one of the viewing platforms, studying the reconstructed timeline display with tactical assessment. The damage has been repaired, she confirmed. Timelines restabilizing according to natural progression rather than imposed patterns. Zara observed these proceedings with quiet amusement, ancient eyes reflecting knowledge that transcended even this monumental cosmic realignment. The cycle continues, she stated simply. As it has before, as it will again, though perhaps with slightly different emphasis this particular iteration. Throughout the reconstructed nexus, celestial delegates were rematerializing, beings from across the multiverse whose existence transcended normal timeline limitations. They regarded the central group with expressions ranging from confusion to awe as awareness of recent events filtered through collective cosmic consciousness. The timeline hunters had also transitioned through the convergence. Their specialized chronological harnesses now modified to harmonize with natural timeline flow rather than negate it. Miko Shadowblade approached Goku directly, her former assassin's coldness replaced by cautious curiosity. Guardian, she acknowledged with formal respect. It seems we are unemployed. Or perhaps re-employed with different purpose, he suggested. The multiverse still needs protection. Still requires those who understand how to navigate between timelines without disrupting natural progression. The former assassin considered this, dark eyes reflecting thoughtful assessment. From enforcement to protection, she mused. An interesting evolution. As equilibrium gradually returned to the nexus, with celestial delegates organizing themselves to assess the transformed multiverse structure. Goku found himself at the center of an unlikely gathering. Sora Kai, Lena Voltage, Arya Stormheart, Miko Shadowblade, and Zara Kairos, representatives of Fundament. Tally different approaches to existence who had nonetheless found common purpose in preserving the multiverse's essential diversity. What happens now? Arya asked directly, Commander's practicality cutting through metaphysical complexity. We prevented the architect's imposed order, but does that mean simply returning to how things were before? Nothing returns exactly as it was, Zara replied. With the wisdom of infinite observation, each cycle builds upon what came before, incorporating new understanding into established patterns. The convergence may have completed, but its effects continue to propagate throughout the multiverse, Sora added, her celestial perspective encompassing vast chronological implications. Timelines will stabilize along modified parameters, not directed toward artificial efficiency, but perhaps with greater natural harmony. Balance, Goku summarized, the concept somehow embodying everything they had fought to preserve. Not imposed uniformity or unchecked chaos, but the dynamic equilibrium between structure and freedom, order and possibility. As the others continued discussing immediate stabilization priorities, Goku stepped aside briefly, moving to one of the observation platforms that overlooked the reconstructed chronograph. The multidimensional display showed trillions of timelines flowing with renewed vibrancy, each unique yet connected to all others through subtle harmonic resonance. His reflection on recent events was interrupted by Zara's quiet approach, the ancient observer joining him with unhurried serenity. You're troubled, she stated rather than asked, ageless eyes perceiving nuances most would miss. Not troubled exactly, Goku replied after brief consideration. Just processing. Everything happened so quickly, from discovering the architect's plan to confronting him at the convergence point to witnessing universal renewal. Barely enough time to understand the implications, let alone prepare for what follows. Time, Zara noted with subtle amusement, as rarely accommodating of preparation, even for those who oversee its flow. She studied him with renewed interest. You're different from previous guardians. More connected to individual existence despite your cosmic responsibility. It creates both vulnerability and strength. The architect saw only the vulnerability, Goku observed. He believed detachment was necessary for proper perspective, that caring about individual timelines clouded judgment. A perspective easily adopted when observing from outside rather than experiencing from within, Zara repeated her earlier insight. I should know. I spent countless cycles merely watching, believing non-interference represented higher wisdom. Her ageless features softened with what might have been regret. Perhaps we were both wrong in our different ways. Their conversation paused as Sora approached, celestial composure restored despite recent cosmic upheaval. Guardian, the conclave is reassembling. They request your presence for formal assessment of multiverse status and implementation of restoration protocols. Goku nodded, the responsibilities of his position reasserting themselves i.e. the momentous events they had just experienced. Some things remained constant even after universal renewal. Tell them I'll join shortly, he replied, earning a respectful nod from the celestial strategist before she departed to deliver his response. Returning his attention to the chronograph, Goku observed a particular timeline configuration with heightened interest, one that showed his original home reality, where Earth continued its unlikely existence despite countless threats that should have destroyed it many times over. Where his friends and family lived their lives, unaware of how CLO's all reality had come to fundamental restructuring. You miss it, Zara observed. The simplicity of being merely Son Goku, defender of Earth, rather than guardian of all timelines. Sometimes, he admitted, though I've accepted this responsibility and wouldn't abandon it. He smiled slightly, a genuine expression that reflected his essential nature despite all he had witnessed and become. There's something special about fighting to protect one world, one group of people you know personally, that gets lost when your perspective expands to encompass all possible realities. Perhaps Hat connection is precisely what makes you effective as guardian, Zara suggested. The understanding that every timeline, no matter how seemingly insignificant in cosmic terms, represents someone's entire existence, their loves, struggles, triumphs, losses, Before Goku could respond, Arya, Lena, and Miko approached, their unlikely alliance having apparently continued through post-convergence stabilization efforts. The conclave grows impatient, Arya reported with blunt practicality. Apparently cosmic entities dislike waiting even after narrowly avoiding multiversal restructuring. Some constants transcend universal renewal. Lena observed with dry humor, her scientific precision not precluding appreciation for cosmic irony. Miko remained slightly apart from the others, her former asses. Sin's wariness gradually giving way to cautious integration. The timeline hunters await direction as well, she added. Without the architect's purpose, we require new parameters. Goku considered them all: celestial strategist, scientific genius, tactical commander, reformed assassin, and ancient observer, each representing fundamentally different approaches to existence yet now connected through shared experience at reality's literal end and rebirth. I think, he said slowly, an idea forming that represented perhaps the most significant deviation from traditional Guardian protocols, that the events we've experienced demonstrate the limitations of singular perspective, no matter how enhanced or well-intentioned. Meaning, Sora prompted, violet eyes narrowing slightly as she sensed approaching unorthodoxy. Meaning the Guardian of all timelines shouldn't function in isolation, Goku explained, the concept developing as he articulated it. The architect's fundamental error wasn't ambition but isolation, believing his singular vision sufficient to direct multiversal evolution without input from diverse perspectives. You're suggesting a council rather than individual authority, Zara deduced. Ancient eyes reflecting intrigued assessment. Unprecedented in Guardian history, but consistent with the balanced approach we just fought to preserve, Goku countered. Not imposed uniformity or unchecked chaos, but dynamic equilibrium between different viewpoints and priorities. The others exchanged glances, processing this radical suggestion with their respective analytical frameworks. Sora appeared most conflicted, celestial protocols warring with recent evidence supporting diversified authority. The conclave would consider such restructuring controversial, she noted, though without immediate rejection. Guardian authority has traditionally been vested in a single entity specifically to prevent competing directives. And yet a single entity nearly rewrote all reality according to personal vision. Arya countered with practical directness. Perhaps some competition of perspective provides necessary balance. Systemic counterweights, Lena agreed, scientific mind immediately recognizing the theoretical advantages. Multiple viewpoints creating more robust analytical framework than any singular perspective, regardless of how enhanced. The very principle we demonstrated at the convergence point, Miko added quietly. 5 cardinal positions creating more balanced configuration than 4, or 1. Zara observed this exchange with growing interest, antsy. Eyes reflecting something approaching actual enthusiasm, a notable departure from her usual detached observation. I have witnessed countless universal cycles, she said thoughtfully, each impel me. NTING variations on fundamental cosmic governance. Yet never has the Guardian function been distributed rather than concentrated. A small smile touched her ageless features. The novelty alone recommends consideration. Goku nodded, decision crystallizing as their collective wisdom reinforced his developing concept. Then we present this proposal to the conclave, not as replacement for Guardian authority but as enhancement to it. A council of diverse perspectives providing balance that no single viewpoint, however enlightened, can maintain alone. As they prepared to join the assembled celestial delegates, Goku glanced once more at the chronograph, at the trillions of timeline threads flowing with renewed vibrancy after their narrow escape from artificial restriction. Each represented countless lives, experiences, possibilities, the beautiful imperfection of existence that had nearly been sacrificed for cosmic efficiency. Balance, he repeated softly, the concept somehow encompassing everything they had fought to preserve and everything they now sought to establish. With that simple yet profound understanding, the Guardian of all timelines, no longer isolated in cosmic responsibility, but supported by diverse wisdom, moved to address the celestial conclave and implement the next evolution in multiversal governance. Not imposed order or unchecked chaos, but the dynamic equilibrium between structure and freedom that represented existence's true potential. Behind them, the reconstructed Chronos nexus hummed with renewed purpose, its crystalline structures incorporating both mathematical precision and organic fluidity. Perfect embodiment of the balance they had fought to preserve and now sought to maintain. The multiverse continued its endless dance of possibility, forever Chong-ing yet somehow remaining eternally itself, precisely as it was meant to be. Blank, _ blank. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.